Chapter 21:13. Next, you should go to the inheritance space and learn how to control fire. If you can't reach the level of controlling a level 1 Dan fire at will, don't even think about coming out. Mu Yan opened her mouth to speak, but Han Chujiu had already waved her hand. Suddenly, a strong airflow hit her face. When Mu Yan opened her eyes, she was already in a small closed room. In the four corners of the room, there is a dragon head. In the middle, there is a chessboard. The lines on the chessboard are crisscrossed, and in the four corners, there are 4 chess pieces, black, white, red, and yellow. Mu Yan is feeling strange when she hears Han Chujiu's voice coming from the void. Disciple, what you need to do is to use the flames spewed out from the 4 dragon heads to urge the 4 chess pieces to move. These 4 chess pieces are smelted with a special crystal stone. Only a unique spiritual fire can move them. But this kind of crystal stone is extremely fragile and sensitive. If the fire is not enough, the chess pieces will not move. If the fire is too strong, the chess pieces and the chessboard will be instantly burned to powder. What you need to do is to use the corresponding spiritual fire from the dragon heads to control the 4 chess pieces to the end. At that time, you will be able to master the primary fire control technique. At that time, you will be qualified to learn how to refine pills. Mu Yan is about to ask, when the 4 dragon heads suddenly spurt out 4 fierce flames at the same time. The temperature in the whole room suddenly rises. Mu Yan can't dodge in time and is directly burned by one of the flames. She groans in pain. Mu Yan calms down and quickly urges her spiritual power, trying to control the 4 flames. However, even if her divine sense is incomparably strong, she is still flustered. During this period, she was burned by the flames several times. With great difficulty, she finally controls the 4 flames. Mu Yan carefully separates a wisp and manipulates the 4 flames to drive the 4 chess pieces. Bean-sized beads of sweat roll down from her forehead, and the muscles of her whole body are tense to the extreme. However, as soon as the flames touch the chess pieces, there is a loud bang from below, and the chess pieces and the chessboard explode. The flames and the aftermath of the explosion overturn Mu Yan to the ground, and she directly spits out a mouthful of blood. She couldn't help but moan at the burning pain in her soul. In the room, the 4 pillars of fire continue to spit out, and the broken chessboard recondenses. Mu Yan slowly stands up and walks back to the chessboard. In the void, Han Chujiu's spiritual sense explored the scene inside the hut, feeling quite proud. Hee, my good disciple, I was burned by the hidden dragon's 4 fires, for 7 days and 7 nights before I grasped the elementary fire controlling art. You have to work harder. Master will give you 10 days. If you still can't grasp the elementary fire manipulation art in 10 days, then Master will give you another chance. By the way, the most important thing now was not to watch his little disciple practice the fire manipulating technique, but to show off to those guys in the Divine Wind Palace. Han Chujiu suddenly opened her eyes. Ignoring the exhaustion of her spirit, she immediately condensed a doppelganger and hurriedly flew toward the Divine Wind Palace. Teaching Mu Yan in the inheritance space, Han Chujiu does not need to consume her divine soul. But in the inheritance space, there was no way to disguise his appearance. That was why he had first dragged him into the mustard seed medicine king hall that the heaven void cauldron had transformed into. Han Chujiu couldn't imagine what kind of expression her precious disciple will have when he sees the legendary king of medicine as a teenager. Would his precious disciple laugh at him? No. Absolutely not. Chapter 21:14. He would rather consume his soul to maintain his immortal image in front of his little disciple. As soon as Han Chujiu arrived at Lingshao Hall, she found that the atmosphere was heavy. A person knelt on the ground and bowed to Di Mingju, who was sitting at the head of the table, reporting to June Shang, Lingxi Valley sent a message asking for help, saying that the enchantment at the back of their mountain is unstable and the poltergeist ghosts have invaded. Lingxi Valley has already lost many immortals and will soon be unable to resist. Requesting help from all sides. Di Mingju slightly frowned and did not answer. Someone below sneered, Lingxi Valley is asking us for help. Did I hear it wrong? Didn't the Valley Master of Lingxi Valley say that the polar domain is nothing and that they will never surrender to us? That old woman even shamelessly insulted Di Jun. Now she actually came to ask us for help. Does she still have any face? Jun Shang, this subordinate doesn't think it's appropriate to rescue them this time. An old man bowed and said, the enchantment at the northern frontier of the polar domain has just stabilized. The Xian and Yu tribes have suffered some damage. If it weren't for the Medicine King's antidote, I'm afraid the consequences would be unimaginable. Yes, Jun Shang. Another person also said, this subordinate heard that the enchantment of Lingxi Valley did not open naturally, but because they had a plan and deliberately opened it. I didn't expect that it would become unstable and the poltergeist ghosts would invade. The number of poltergeist ghosts invading the back of Lingxi Valley is far more than our polar domain. Once the poltergeist ghosts form a group, even with the Medicine Kings, Heaven detoxification pill, I'm afraid it will not bode well. Our polar domain and Lingxi Valley are neither relatives nor friends, we even have enmity. We really don't need to get involved in these muddy waters. Hee, the netherworld is closer to Lingxi Valley. That old woman of Lingxi Valley often fawns over Yin Wuji, but this time when Lingxi Valley is in trouble, does the netherworld have any reaction? Di Mingju quietly listened to the people below. After a long time, he coldly said, the polar domain will not send troops to help Lingxi Valley. Hearing Di Mingju's decision, the people below immediately showed a relieved expression. But the next moment, they heard Di Mingju slowly said, all of you stay to guard the imperial city in the northern frontier, Ben Jun will go to Lingxi Valley myself. Everyone was startled at first, then immediately exploded. My lord, you must not do that. How can you risk your life for a mere spirit rhinoceros valley? If Jun Shang wants you to go, we might as well send troops to help. Di Mingju's fierce gaze sweeps over everyone present, his pupils cold and heavy, his expression disdainful, as if he's the god of the ninth heaven. Ben Jun has already decided, you don't need to say anything more. Pijuan, come with me. The man standing to the left of Di Mingju silently bows, as you bid, Jun Shang. My lord, my lord. You can't take the risk. My lord, let this subordinate accompany you. In the twinkling of an eye, Di Mingju arrives outside the hall. With a wave of his hand, the door behind him closes. Those complicated sounds were also shut behind the door. His eyes swept around and saw Han Chujiu, who was standing on the side. He coldly said, Medicine King, is there something? Han Chujiu stared at him blankly. For a moment, she forgot what she came here for. She muttered, you little demon, do you know how terrible it is when the poltergeist ghosts form a group and surround us? If you can't kill them all in a short period of time, they will continue to regenerate, and the poltergeist ghosts and the enchantment will continue to pour out. But you can't touch them in the slightest. You have to constantly consume your divine power to kill them. Even if you have more divine power, it's not enough for such a bottomless pit. Chapter 21:15. He has been poisoned too much. Even the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill is useless. You're risking your life just to save a spirit rhino valley. Are you out of your mind? With an expressionless face, Di Mingju listens to him call him a brat, and hears him say that his brain is broken. It was only after he finished nagging that he sneered, if the skin doesn't exist, how can the hair attach itself to it? Of course, I can choose not to help Spirit Rhino Valley, but if no one goes to help, with the ravaging poltergeist ghosts, who on the Shushan continent would be spared. Benjun is still waiting. Benjun is still waiting for Yan Yan and Xiao Bao to come to the Shushan continent. How could he allow Yan Yan to cultivate diligently in the future and ascend to this place, wanting to be with him forever, only to see a world riddled with holes? Han Chujiu said with disappointment, "Then, you can bring your shrimp soldiers and crab generals with you. Too many people will naturally exhaust the poltergeist to death. You don't use the people under you and take the risk alone. Are you stupid or just stupid?" Back then, this kid seemed to be smart and ruthless. Why did he become stupid after becoming the Polar Domain's sovereign emperor? Di Mingju calmly looks at him, the corner of his mouth slowly hooking up into a mocking smile. Who told the Medicine King's Heaven Spirit detoxification pill to only cure the symptoms of the cockroach poison? It couldn't save the true life. Without the antidote for the nightmare poison, you brought people to the Spirit Rhino Valley to rescue them. Do you think that the lives of our Polar Domain soldiers are worthless? After that, Xiao Tianyao didn't wait for Han Chujiu to react. His figure disappeared without a trace. Han Chujiu stood in the same place for a long time. Then, he finally made an earth-shattering roar. Di Mingju, you bastard, you really aren't a good thing. You actually dare to mock this old man's medicinal pill. Just you wait, just you wait. This old man will develop an antidote to the pie poison and smash it on your face. When this old man's precious disciple comes up, this old man will definitely let him beat you into a pig's head. Han Chujiu stormed back to the Medicine King Hall and directly entered the inheritance space. He was about to go crazy. He must supervise his little disciple to immediately, and rapidly grow stronger. Grasping the fire manipulation art in 10 days. No. Too slow. 7 days. No, he needed 6 days to master the fire manipulation art. However, as soon as Han Chujiu entered the inheritance space, she scanned with her spiritual sense. But, she was so shocked that she almost fell into the room. How could this be? Of the 4 chess pieces, 3 had already reached the end. And the last one, under Mayan's control, is getting closer and closer to the finish line. Han Chujiu stared at the hourglass in the inheritance space. The flow of time in the inheritance space was much slower than in the real world. A day here was equivalent to 2 hours outside. Looking at the hourglass, it was clear that only 3 days had passed. He learned the fire manipulation art in 3 days. How was this possible? The last chess piece slowly reached the end. In the blink of an eye, the fire dragon that was originally spitting out disappeared, and the chessboard also emitted a sparkling light, enveloping Mu Yan's entire body. Mayan only feels that her divine sense and spiritual power, which had originally been completely depleted, are instantly replenished. Her body felt as if she was soaking in a hot spring, so comfortable that she wanted to moan. 9th Master. Mu Yan beamed with joy. This method of controlling fire that you taught me is really too powerful. I feel that my control over the pill fire has increased by more than 3 times compared to before. In the past, she could only refine 10 barrier-breaking pills in 1 furnace. If she were to refine again now, 1 furnace would absolutely surpass 30 pills. Mu Yan moved her sore arm, sighing. Chapter 21:16. It's just that it's really not easy to control 4 different types of spirit fire in one go. I spent a day before I could skillfully differentiate and control the 4 types of spirit fire. Grasping the power to move the chess pieces took another day or so. Unknowingly, I actually spent 3 days. This fire manipulation art is indeed somewhat difficult to learn. It is indeed worthy of being the Medicine King's inheritance. Han Chujiu, he felt like he had been stabbed in the heart by an arrow. 3 days. 3 days. This little disciple of his managed to learn the beginner-level fire manipulation art in 3 days, and he actually said that it was difficult. How many days did she need to learn it? 2 days. 1 day. It took Han Chujia 7 days to master the basic fire-controlling art. But now, Han Chujia's blood got stuck in his throat. He couldn't spit it out. Why did that brat Di Mingju hit him so hard? He wanted to seek comfort from his precious disciple, but in the end, he was hurt even more. This world is too cruel to Han Chuzhou. Ninth Master. Are you there? Ahem, Han Chuzhou lightly coughed and picked up the broken pieces of her heart and reassembled them. Then, she calmly said, Your performance is good, you have met the expectations of this master. Next, you can try using the elementary fire manipulation art to refine pills. Mu Yan frowned, and said with some difficulty, Ninth Master, I also want to try to refine pills, but I discovered, after I passed the Medicine King's inheritance assessment, it seems that the power of alchemy is a little out of control, and every time I refine pills, I will explode a pill furnace. Moreover, every time it exploded, it was a 7th or 8th grade alchemy furnace, each of which was worth more than 10,000 crystals, or even 1,000,000 crystals. If she continued to blow things up, she would really be penniless. Han Chuzhou disdainfully said, those broken copper and iron in the Shuzhen continent can also be called alchemy furnace. Bah, you're not even qualified to be my trash can. Here, these alchemy furnaces are for you. As soon as her voice falls, several alchemy furnaces fall in front of Mayan. As soon as Mayan sees these alchemy furnaces, her eyes widen and she swallows a few mouthfuls of saliva. Good, so many crystal stones. No, so many top-grade alchemy furnaces. None of them could be compared to the alchemy furnaces on the road of cultivation. Ninth Master, you're giving me all of this. Of course. Han Chuzhou said indifferently, isn't it just an alchemy furnace? You are my, Han Chujia's, only disciple. So, if you want something, I can give it to you. Oh, but because of the space barrier, the immortal medicine, spiritual medicine, and spiritual fire here cannot be passed to you through the inheritance space. In short, my good disciple, you must cultivate well and strive to ascend as soon as possible. Help me teach that bastard a lesson. Finally, when Han Chuzhou said the word bastard, she gnashed her teeth in anger. Mu Yan thought to herself, it seems that Ninth Master really hates the person who bullied him. Oh, Ninth Master is so good to me. When I ascend, I must avenge him. He would ruthlessly bully those who bullied him. Han Chuzhou added, during this time, this master wants to study and refine a kind of pill. I have no time to teach you. You should practice by yourself. If there's anything you don't understand, just call me. Mu Yan nodded her head obediently. After confirming that Han Chujia's soul has disappeared, she left the inheritance space. When she opened her eyes again, she didn't return to Tianguang ruins. Instead, she went straight back to the Tian Mo Qin space. In the future, if she wants to enter the inheritance space, she doesn't need to go through Tianguang ruins. She only needs to hold the Medicine King's token and activate it with her divine sense. Chapter 21:17. What pleasantly surprised her the most about the Medicine King token is that the flow of time inside is 12:1. Staying in the inheritance space for a day is equivalent to only 1 hour outside. For her alchemy cultivation, it's really a godly weapon. Mayan opens her eyes and looks at the 4 dazzling alchemy furnaces that came back with her. She's practically blooming with joy. Oh, it's really great to have a master. She can finally earn Jingshi through alchemy. She finally doesn't have to be a pauper anymore. Dinghua Manor. A wisp of green aura slowly flows into Chu Xinyan's body through a strange talisman array. The originally wrinkled skin on Chu Xinyan's neck slowly becomes smooth and compact. The originally gentle and refined face also becomes more graceful and luxurious, full of vitality. The green aura slowly dissipates, and Chu Xinyan shows an intoxicated expression. He glances at the person opposite him, greed and unwillingness flitting through his eyes. He sees that Chu Tianyu, who is sitting not far away, has a deathly pale complexion, and there are strands of white hair on his temples. He's clearly less than 30 years old, but at this moment, he looks like he's aged 10 or 20 years. Fine wrinkles crawl up the corners of his eyes, his skin is even more deathly pale, his cheeks are sunken, and he's emaciated. It's like someone has suddenly drained him of his flesh and vitality. There's a thread stuck in his chest, and the other end of the thread is connected to that strange talisman array. And the vitality that is channeled into Chu Xinyan's body is extracted from Chu Tianyu's body through this thread. Vitality is a combination of flesh and blood, vitality, soul, and spiritual power. Such a precious vitality is extracted little by little, and in an instant, his hair turns white. This kind of pain and despair is by no means what ordinary people can imagine. Chu Tianyu's body trembles violently, dark red instant noodles spilling from the corners of his mouth. The rise and fall of his chest and the fluctuations of spiritual power around his body are getting weaker and weaker. Chu Xinyan frowns regretfully. It seems that he can't extract any more vitality, otherwise, Chu Tianyu will immediately run out of oil and die. He takes off his gloves and looks at his smooth and powerful hands, his eyes filled with fascination. It feels so good to be able to seize other people's vitality and increase his own lifespan. Unfortunately, the demonic cultivator array that he obtained can only be used on people who are directly related to him by blood. Otherwise, his body would explode and he would die because of the incompatibility between his spiritual energy and blood. Over the years, Chu Xinyan had married and snatched women with good aptitudes one after another. Let them give birth to their own bloodline. Whether it was a man or a woman, as long as they were raised to the gold core stage, their vitality would be sucked clean. However, as his lifespan passed the end of the tribulation stage, his fertility was getting worse and worse. He had defiled hundreds of women without being able to get them pregnant. In the 20 years after Chu Tianyu was born, he had only given birth to a child by a woman. That child, on the other hand, was only 5 years old and was still far from reaching the golden core realm. Chu Xinyan looked down at Chu Tianyu, who was convulsing in pain and coughing up blood from time to time. He laughed lightly and said, Father doesn't want to treat you like this. Right now, you are my only son. But you really disappoint me. How is it? Have you thought it through? Are you willing to tell us Yi Liangchen's real identity? Chu Tianyu slowly stopped convulsing. His body curled up into a ball and he didn't speak. Chu Xinyan's voice became gentler and gentler. Father knows that you are afraid of being killed by the 6-star order like Song Wei, but don't worry. Chapter 21:18. Song Wei, I wasn't prepared and was caught off guard. That's why I couldn't save Song Wei. Furthermore, Song Wei is just one of my lackeys. He can't be compared to you. As long as you are willing to tell me, I promise to protect you. Chu Tianyu slowly raised his head and looked at Chu Xinyan. His voice was weak and hoarse. I can tell you Yi Liangchen's identity, but I want to see my mother first. Chu Xinyan frowned. Tell me Yi Liangchen's identity first, then I will let you see your mother. Chu Tianyu gritted his teeth and revealed a stubborn and pleading expression. If I reveal Yi Liangchen's identity, I might be killed by the 6-star order. Father, before I die, at least let me see my mother and make sure she is safe. If I'm really killed because of my vow, I hope that Father will consider the love between you and Mother and spare her life. Chu Xinyan pondered for a moment as if he was hesitating. In the end, he sighed and said, "Yuer, do you not trust your father that much? Fine, I will let you see your mother. Xian Wei, Xiao Xiong, come in." Just as Chu Xinyan finished speaking, two out-of-body stage cultivators pushed open the door and respectfully bowed to Chu Xinyan. "Bring the prince to see the madam." Chu Xinyan's cold gaze swept across the two and said, "Remember, you must take good care of the prince and madam. 2 hours later, bring the prince back to this room. If anything goes wrong, you know the consequences." Qian Wei and Zhao Xiong shivered and quickly bowed. The teleportation formation flickered. Qian Wei and Zhao Xiong escorted Chu Tianyu to a luxurious and elegant room. In the room, a beautiful middle-aged woman in her 40s was mending clothes with her head lowered. Hearing the sound, she immediately raised her head. Chu Tianyu steadied himself and looked at the beautiful woman. His eyes immediately became wet. "Mother. You're..." The beautiful woman was startled at first, then she let out a cry of surprise. She threw away the clothes in her hands and happily rushed over. You came to see mother." However, when she supported Chu Tianyu, she felt that his body was as thin as a match. When she saw his mottled snow-white sideburns in his aged face, she immediately shuddered. What's wrong?" The beautiful middle-aged woman held on tightly to his arm, her other hand reaching out to touch his face, but she almost didn't dare to touch it because of her trembling and the coldness. Tears rolled down her cheeks. It's him. He did something to you, didn't he?" Her face suddenly turned ferocious and she roared crazily, "Why? Why would he do that to you? You're his biological son. I'm already so obedient, locked in this cage, not going anywhere. He can torture and humiliate me as he pleases in this dark place. My only hope is that you can live well. Why is he still unwilling to let you go?" Chu Tianyu felt as if his heart was about to explode. In the past, whenever he had come to this private room to see his mother, she had always behaved in a serene and elegant manner. He seemed to be very satisfied with this kind of life. But that was not the case. His mother endured all of this and showed a serene and peaceful smile. It was all for him, to make him feel at ease. Chu Tianyu couldn't bear it anymore. He suddenly reached out and pulled the beautiful middle-aged woman into his embrace. His hoarse voice, mixed with sobs, rang in her ears. "Mother, I don't want to endure that bastard anymore. Let's run away, okay?" Chapter 21:19. The beautiful middle-aged woman stiffened, her pupils shrank, and her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something. Chu Tianyu glanced at Zhao Xiong and Qian Wei on the side, and used an even lower voice to transmit his voice, "Mother, don't talk. Those two people were sent by father to monitor me. We must not let them see anything strange. In a while, you will greet me as usual, and do everything according to my instructions." The beautiful middle-aged woman's face was full of horror. But when she heard her son's hoarse voice, filled with despair and pleading, saying, "Mother, I want to leave that bastard and live a new life with you," the fear in her eyes immediately turned into the tenacity of a mother. Zhao Xiong and Qian Wei suspiciously glanced over, concentrating their spiritual energy on their ears. Chu Tianyu immediately smiled. "Mother, what are you talking about? How come I don't understand? I'm just too tired recently, so I'm a little tired. But father gave me a lot of elixirs, I believe I can recover after taking them." As he spoke, he glanced at the clothes that the beautiful middle-aged woman had just thrown away. "Mother, are those clothes made for me?" Yes. "Look at me, I'm too happy to see you, so I'm confused, so I'm incoherent." The beautiful woman's face revealed a flawless smile, pulling Chu Tianyu to the bedside. "This is the new clothes that mother made for you, quickly try it on. If it doesn't fit, mother will change it for you." Her appearance was very much like a mother who finally saw her son after a long separation. In her eyes, there was only whether her son was warm or not, whether he was full or not, and everything else was thrown to the back of her mind. Zhao Xiong and Qian Wei relaxed, casually standing to the side. Looking at the mother and son, their eyes were full of contempt. Even if it's the Marquis's wife, so what? It's only on the surface. In fact, it's worse than them, the Marquis's men. But this Marquis's wife, although over 40 years old, because she's a cultivator, she still has tender skin and charm. That delicate skin made them want to drool just by looking at it. No wonder Lu Yu has been obsessed with her. Hee, when the Marquis gets the mysterious heaven bead, Chu Tianyu will be useless. At that time, this beautiful woman will be bestowed to Lu Yu. Thinking about it really makes them envious. Although they were fantasizing, Zhao Xiong and Qian Wei did not relax their surveillance on Chu Tianyu and his mother. Soon, more than an hour had passed. Zhao Xiong looked at the hourglass and immediately said, "Prince, it's time. The Marquis is still waiting for you. Please come back with us." Chu Tianyu grabbed the beautiful woman's hand, his face full of reluctance. "It hasn't even been 2 hours, Mr. Zhao. I and my mother have finally reunited. Please let me stay a little longer." "Crown Prince, this is not up to you and me. If we miss the timing, the Marquis's anger is not something that any one of us can bear." Zhao Xiong spoke politely, but his eyes were filled with disdain. The dignified Crown Prince was living like a dog, yet he still had to wag his tail and beg for mercy. Chu Tianyu revealed a dejected look and could only stand up and walk in the direction of the transmission array. The beautiful middle-aged woman's face was full of tears. She grabbed his hand and refused to let go. "You, stay with your mother for a while longer, okay? Mother, I'll come and see you later." "No, you, let me look at you again. And look at you." The two of them pulled and quickly arrived at the transmission array. The two of them were not surprised by this scene. Chapter 21:20. On the other hand, the middle-aged beautiful woman's tearful appearance made them lick their lips, revealing a greedy and longing expression. "Madam, the Marquis is still waiting for the prince, please let go." When Zhao Xiong grabbed the middle-aged beautiful woman, he also pinched her slender waist and buttocks. The middle-aged beautiful woman did not dare to resist at all except crying and glaring at him. Such a reluctant and welcoming gesture made the lust in Zhao Xiong's eyes even more intense. However, at the next moment, Zhao Xiong suddenly heard Chu Tianyu shout, "Mother, now!" Qian Wei and Zhao Xiong had no time to react to what, now. Zhao Xiong felt his waist being stabbed by something, and then his whole body was pushed out. The person who stabbed him was the beautiful woman he thought had no resistance. She only used an ordinary hairpin that had no spiritual power at all. Zhao Xiong pulled out the hairpin, furious, and was about to turn around and slap the woman. Qian Wei shouted in horror, "Not good, they're going to run." Zhao Xiong suddenly turned around and saw that the stack of talismans in Chu Tianyu's hand had just burned out. And the teleportation array below that should not have been activated without them lit up with a dazzling light. Chu Tianyu pulled the middle-aged beautiful woman into the teleportation array. Their figures slowly distorted in the teleportation array, faintly discernible. Zhao Xiong and Qian Wei felt their scalps go numb when they saw this scene. Because from the strong fluctuations of this teleportation array, they sensed that this was not teleportation to the Marquis's mansion at all. The intensity of the teleportation array was definitely much farther. And once Chu Tianyu and the beautiful woman were teleported away, Chu Tianyu would destroy the other side's array. They would be like fish in the sea, nowhere to be found. The two of them almost simultaneously remembered Chu Xinyan's warning when they escorted Chu Tianyu. Chu Tianyu had not yet revealed Yi Liangchen's identity. If they escaped like this, they would live a life worse than death, 100 times more miserable than Chu Tianyu's. Zhao Xiong's eyes flashed fiercely, and he shouted, "Let's chase." He rushed into the teleportation array that was still flashing like lightning. Qian Wei hesitated for a moment. If Chu Tianyu destroyed the array during the teleportation, they would die without a burial place. But when he thought of Chu Xinyan's punishment, he gritted his teeth and followed. Dragon Soaring Academy, Tianlang Palace. Mu Yan comes out of the inheritance space and gives a good stretch. She glanced at Xiao Bao, who was sleeping soundly on the bed, and lowered her head to kiss his rosy cheeks. Only then did she turn around and leave the room. Little junior sister, it's so late, why haven't you slept? Mayan says, I've been learning how to refine elixirs recently, and I'm still lacking quite a few elixirs that I can't buy in Divine Elephant City. I heard that there are many rare spirit herbs in the back mountain of Soaring Dragon, but they are usually guarded by high-level demon beasts. That's why I'm planning to collect some overnight. These days, Mu Yan is like a spinning top, so busy that she's going crazy. Every day, little martial uncle would assign him tasks to practice his swordsmanship. He also had to listen to the lectures of some high-level cultivators at the Deer Cry banquet. He also had to complete the alchemy task assigned by his 9th master in the inheritance space. He really wished that he could turn 2 hours into 100 hours every day. However, the improvement was also significant. Currently, Mu Yan can already restrain her spiritual power within the blood-slaughtering sword array, and only rely on her sword intent to fight. Her heart of the sword had also become more and more solid from its original illusory state. As for the level of alchemy, it was even more so. Chapter 21-21. However, in the eyes of the perfectionist Ninth Shifu, the pills she refined were still trash. Moreover, she was not allowed to sell it. He said that he was afraid of losing his title as the Medicine King. Mu Yan thought that she could finally earn spar, but she didn't expect that she could only be a poor and bitter person. Now, not to mention getting rich, because of buying alchemy elixirs, the remaining crystal stones were almost all spent. Hence, the reason why they went into the mountains to pick herbs wasn't just because these rare spiritual herbs couldn't be bought in Divine Elephant City. More importantly, she was too poor to afford it. Mu Yan casually threw a few bottles of pills to Yun Ruhan. Yun Ruhan was already used to their junior sister throwing a bunch of priceless pills at them anytime and anywhere. Now, if anyone from the Xiaoyao sect took out a bunch of medicinal pills from their storage space, they would definitely be killed. It could definitely scare people to death. They had so many yuan strengthening pills that cost tens of thousands of crystals that they played with them like marbles and ate them like candy. Not to mention the priceless Shi Yuan Dan. There was also the legendary bottleneck-breaking pill that others had never seen before. Over here, they were all picky, deciding which pill to eat first based on its shape and luster. As for pill toxins, don't joke around. Not to mention that Mu Yan can refine a lot of high-grade water element pills. Just by relying on the Shin musician's skill, mist-dispersing clouds, he can directly remove the pill poison without any side effects. Yun Ruhan doesn't feel any psychological burden as he accepts the elixir that Mu Yan threw to him. He warmly says, "Thank you." Mu Yan asked curiously, "It's already so late, why hasn't eldest senior brother rested yet?" Yun Ruhan looked at the night sky and frowned slightly. Little Seven said he was going to the back mountain of Longting to look for materials to refine puppets, but he hasn't returned yet. I'm a bit worried. Mu Yan is also a little surprised. It's already so late, why hasn't Luoyu returned? Was he in danger? Eldest senior brother, don't worry. Mu Yan smiled, I'll go pick some herbs and bring Xiao-Qi back. Eldest senior brother, you know that it's much easier for me to find people in the forest than it is for you guys. The effect of myriad plants resonating allowed her divine sense to cover a large area of the forest. Of course, it would be much easier to find people. Yun Ruhan knows that Mayan has many unimaginable abilities. This was her secret, and no one in the Xiaoyao school wanted to know. In fact, everyone in the Xiaoyao sect had their own secrets. Yun Ruhan nodded and smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you, junior sister. Xiao-Qi, when he comes back, I must let him know that staying out at night is not an acceptable behavior. Mu Yan looks up to see Yun Ruhan's kind smile, but she shudders. He silently mourned for Luo Yu 100 times in his heart. In the Carefree sect, everyone knew that no matter who they provoked, they couldn't afford to provoke eldest brother. Otherwise, they would die miserably. Purple Cloud World, at the bottom of a remote valley behind Longting Mountain. It was late at night, and this place was so quiet that even birds and beasts rarely set foot here. But at this moment, a white light suddenly shone. Chu Tianyu and the beautiful woman supported each other as they stumbled onto the grass. The dizziness and the impact of the spiritual energy caused by the teleportation array caused their faces to turn pale and their stomachs to churn. But Chu Tianyu didn't even have time to catch his breath. He immediately took out the scarlet flame sword and fiercely chopped at the ground where the formation was constructed. However, he was still a step too late. Just as the sword chi touched the grass, there was another flash of light. Zhao Xiong's figure staggered out. However, when Zhao Xiong came out, the sword chi had already cut through the teleportation array. The teleportation array twisted and fluctuated, like a sharp blade, fiercely cutting Zhao Xiong's body. Chapter 21-22. Zhao Xiong screamed as a large hole appeared on his abdomen. Blood gushed out and spiritual energy leaked out. Chu Tianyu ruthlessly stabbed forward. Zhao Xiong hurriedly dodged the sword light. He casually took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Chu Tianyu no longer cared about chasing after him. He turned around and wanted to continue destroying the array. But how could Zhao Xiong let him do as he wished? This time, he did not retreat but advanced and entangled Chu Tianyu. At this time, Qian Wei's figure was faintly discernible on the teleportation array. Even though he was covered in cuts and bruises from the distorted teleportation array, he obviously would not die. Chu Tianyu and the beautiful woman could be said to be dead for two leaving body realm cultivators. The beautiful middle-aged woman looked at Chu Tianyu, who was entangled by Zhao Xiong. Suddenly, her eyes burst out with determination and ferocity. She suddenly turned around and rushed into the teleportation array. The hairpin in her hand ruthlessly slashed at the grass. Ah! Two screams sounded at the same time. The beautiful woman was bounced several meters away by the teleportation array. Her body was covered in countless wounds, deep to the bone. Her intestines flowed out from her abdomen as she vomited a mouthful of blood. Qian Wei, who was originally in the teleportation array, was even more miserable. He was directly cut into 17 or 18 pieces by the distorted space. He did not even make a sound before he died. Mother! Chu Tianyu let out a mournful cry and threw himself in front of the beautiful woman. His crimson eyes were filled with tears. Mother, don't scare me. Don't scare me, okay? It was extremely difficult to destroy an active teleportation array. If one's physical body rushed into the teleportation array, they would be torn apart. If ordinary magic treasures entered the teleportation array, they would be instantly destroyed. Chu Tianyu could destroy it because he had the divine artifact Scarlet Flame Sword in his hand. But the beautiful woman did not have anything on her. She only had a weak body and a strong desire to protect her son. The beautiful middle-aged woman opened her eyes in a trance. Her blurred eyes looked at her son who was very close to her. She trembled as she reached out to touch his face. Her bloody hand stuck the blood on Chu Tianyu's face. The beautiful woman wanted to retract her hand, but Chu Tianyu firmly pressed it down. Mother, you promised me that you would escape from that bastard Chu Xinyan with me. You said that you wanted to start a new life with me. I'm sorry. The middle-aged woman's lips trembled with difficulty. It's all Mother's fault for dragging you down. Mother can only help you, this is all. You have to live well, no. Chu Tianyu let out a mournful roar, spirit energy crazily surging into the beautiful middle-aged woman's body. Mother, if you die, what's the point of starting over? Mother, I beg you, don't leave me. In this world, you are the only family I have left, Mother. The beautiful middle-aged woman's hand slowly fell down. Her body became colder and colder as her blood flowed. Chu Tianyu's eyes widened, and his tears dried up. His throat seemed to be blocked by something, and he could no longer make a sound. The world that belonged to him, which was already on the verge of collapse, was completely collapsing. And at this time, Zhao Xiong had already treated the wounds on his body, and furiously flew towards Chu Tianyu, thrusting his sword. Both he and Qian Wei were leaving Aperture Realm cultivators. Among Master Ho's trusted subordinates, their cultivation and status were the lowest. But no matter how low they were still leaving Aperture Realm cultivators. The two of them simply did not put Chu Tianyu, a Jindan brat, and the beautiful woman, a fasting realm cultivator, in their eyes. Who knew that they would be pecked in the eye by the goose? The two of them almost died in Chu Tianyu's hands. Chapter 21-23. Qian Wei had been torn to shreds by the teleportation array. How could he not fly into a rage out of embarrassment? Even if he had to risk being punished by the Marquis, he had to break this little bastard's bones and let him have a taste of life worse than death. Then he would take him back. Zhao Xiong's sword was about to pierce through Chu Tianyu's body. Suddenly, a streak of white light flew in from the side. The white silk wrapped around Zhao Xiong's sword like a snake and pushed it away at the critical moment. The other figure grabbed Chu Tianyu and the beautiful middle-aged woman and rolled to the side, finally avoiding Zhao Xiong's sword light. Boss, are you okay? In his daze, Chu Tianyu heard a familiar voice. He looked up absent-mindedly and found Murong Shui looking at him with concern. On her snow-white clothes, there was a ghastly wound across her shoulder. It was the wound Zhao Xiong had just inflicted. Chu Tianyu suddenly came to his senses, his pupils constricting in fear. Then he roared angrily, Go, go. What are you doing here? Boss Chu, I'm no longer your captain, nor your boss. Chu Tianyu's voice grew shrill. I have nothing to do with the Qilin squad, and I'm not related to you in any way. Why are you meddling? Murong Shui, I told you to scram, did you hear me? Murong Shui stared at him, as if she didn't hear the humiliation and anger in his voice. Instead, she stared at his face, which had aged decades. Boss, what happened to you? Who did this to you? Chu Tianyu said, Murong Shui, I'll say it again, what I do has nothing to do with you, wait, don't quarrel. A clear and pleasant voice came from the side. At a time like this, lives are at stake. Let's save them first, okay? Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui looked over. Seeing the youth squatting next to his mother, his pupils constricted. You're Lan Luoyu from the Carefree Squad. Why are you here? Luoyu ignored him. She quickly took out a pill and stuffed it into the mouth of the middle-aged woman. Feeling it wasn't enough, she took out another bottle, poured out 5 or 6 pills, and stuffed them into the woman's mouth. Chu Tianyu opened his mouth and wanted to say something. Then, his eyes suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. In front of him, the beautiful middle-aged woman whose spiritual energy had already dissipated and whose body was slowly turning ice-cold was actually beginning to slowly heal from her wounds. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth also gathered into her body. His originally deathly still heart began to beat, and his chest rose and fell slightly. Although he was still unconscious, everyone knew that he was not dead, but only unconscious. Mother! Chu Tianyu was wild with joy, throwing himself at the beautiful middle-aged woman, tears pouring out uncontrollably. Mother, mother, you're still alive, you're still alive. Murong Shue's jaw dropped. What kind of pill is this? The aura of spiritual power should only be at the 5th or 6th grade, but how can a 5th or 6th grade medicinal pill bring a person back to life like this? Luo Yu said proudly, can the pills refined by my 6th senior sister be compared to ordinary 5th or 6th grade pills? Chu Tianyu was startled, and his expression became absent-minded and blurry. This is leaf. She refined it. When Luo Yu saw him like this, she thought, could it be that Chu Tianyu like 6th senior sister? That won't do. 6th senior sister is Instructor Mo's. Even junior uncle master doesn't have a share, how can you have a chance? Chapter 21-24. Ha! That's not right. Why did I say, even youngest martial uncle won't get a share? Luo Yu was in a dilemma when her expression suddenly changed. A huge puppet was released and blocked in front of her. He grabbed Murong Shui and the unconscious woman and rolled backwards. With a loud bang, the huge puppet, which was comparable to the early stage of the gold core stage, did not even have the slightest chance to resist. It exploded with a loud bang and shattered into pieces. Luo Yu did not even have the time to retract her divine sense from the puppet. His face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Luo Yu. Murong Shui held him nervously. Are you okay? Luo Yu wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said gloomily, every time I meet someone from your Kirin team, nothing good happens. Especially you. He glared at Chu Tianyu, you even shamelessly pretended to be my 6th senior sister, and now you even implicated me. If it wasn't for this woman protecting the Black Jade Lotus for me, I wouldn't care about your lives. Luo Yu felt that she was very unlucky. He had come to the mountain in the afternoon to collect information on the puppets, and it was almost over. In the end, he happened to see a Black Jade Lotus growing on a cliff. Luo Yu knows that this Black Jade Lotus is priceless. Moreover, it is an elixir that Mayan urgently needs for alchemy. However, the cliff was extremely steep, and the Black Jade Lotus was extremely fragile. If the spiritual energy fluctuation was just a little bit stronger, it would immediately wither. Luo Yu didn't dare to use sword kinesis flight at all. She wasted a few small puppets and still didn't succeed in plucking it. Just as he was about to give up, Murong Shui happened to pass by. Murong Shui's Cloudfrost silk was a very special type of magic treasure. Although the attack power was not strong, after pouring spiritual power into it, it could silently attack without causing any spiritual power fluctuations. In the end, Murong Shui obtained the Black Jade Lotus for him, but she pestered Luo Yu to accompany her in hunting demonic beasts. Since Luo Yu was indebted to him, she could not bear to give up on the Black Jade Lotus, so she could only agree. Unfortunately, the demonic beast Murong Shui wanted to kill was extremely fast and cunning. The two of them chased him through the forest until midnight before they finally caught him. Luo Yu was just about to part ways with Murong Shui when she bumped into Chu Tianyu and Zhao Xiong. A leaving Aperture Realm cultivator. Even if the three of them tied together, they were absolutely not Zhao Xiong's match. Take my mother away, I'll stop him. Chu Tianyu made a prompt decision. His whole body ignited with spiritual power and stood in front of the three. Zhao Xiong laughed loudly and casually slashed with the sword in his hand. Stop me. You. Ha ha ha. You bunch of little bastards, none of you are allowed to leave. The flying sword chopped down, but what attacked was not a sword ray, but a sword net that covered the sky and covered the earth. Chu Tianyu, who bore the brunt of the attack, suddenly had a wound split open on his body and blood spurted out. Luo Yu and Murong Shui weren't much better off. Their bodies were riddled with wounds. Murong Shui tossed out the white silk in her hand, which suddenly turned into a giant flying silk. She shouted, "If we're leaving together. Quick!" As he spoke, the flying silk wrapped around Chu Tianyu and the unconscious beautiful woman and quickly soared into the sky. The speed of the rain was also extremely fast. The hundreds of puppets in his hands were thrown out as if they were free, blocking Zhao Xiong's path. He leaped onto the flying silk and shouted, "Go!" The white flying damask shot out like a bolt of lightning, speeding towards the Dragon Soaring Academy. As long as they could escape into the Dragon Soaring Academy, as long as they could alert the instructors of the Dragon Soaring Academy, they would still have a chance of survival. However, the sound of puppets exploding could be heard from behind them. Chapter 21-25. Luo Yu's face turned even paler, her body on the verge of collapse. Zhao Xiong's figure and sword light caught up to them at lightning speed. The sword slashed down from the sky, like a raging wave and a hurricane. The three of them revealed expressions of irresistible fear. Was this the strength of an astral projection cultivator? That was a true suppression of a higher level. There was no way to resist at all. Bang! Flying Damask and the four others were sent flying by the powerful sword light and smashed to the ground. Chu Tianyu had already lost a lot of vitality and was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Now he was riddled with holes, as if he would die at any moment. But the moment he landed, he activated his domain and burned his spiritual energy without hesitation. He soared into the sky and flew towards Zhao Xiong. Murong Shui didn't hesitate to take out her Cloudfrost Damask again. The damask danced like the wind, surging with spiritual energy and creating layers of illusions. Unfortunately, the illusion of a golden core stage cultivator was of no use to Zhao Xiong. This eruption of Chu Tianyu's deathbed struggle made Zhao Xiong not take it seriously at all. He sneered, his sword suddenly flying out of his hand. Two bolts of lightning struck Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui. The two groaned in pain and fell from the sky. The spiritual energy and domain around them almost dissipated. However, Zhao Xiong's lightning fists did not stop. Punch after punch bombarded Shao Qin. He still held back against Chu Tianyu because he had to hand him over to Chu Xinyan. But against Murong Shui, he was filled with murderous intent. He hadn't done well today. If word got out that he had captured Chu Tianyu, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. So he had to kill Murong Shui and Luo Yu. Especially since Murong Shui was from the Murong family. If she didn't die, the Murong family wouldn't let this go. Zhao Xiong's eyes flashed fiercely. He suddenly gave up on attacking Chu Tianyu and summoned back his flying sword, stabbing it towards Murong Shui's heart. Chu Tianyu's expression changed when he saw this. He was scared out of his wits. Ah, Shui! No! His heart was filled with endless regret and despair. He had let down the Kirin team, and now he was going to kill his teammate. What did he, Chu Tianyu, count as? What was the point of his life? When Zhao Xiong heard Chu Tianyu's shrill howl, he revealed a sinister and proud smile. The sword in his hand exploded with an even more intense killing intent. However, in the next moment, a ray of white light suddenly shot into the sky. Roar! The earth-shattering roar of the beast was like rolling thunder, shaking people's souls. Then, a huge white beast shadow slowly unfolded and enveloped Zhao Xiong. Zhao Xiong raised his head, his whole body stiff, his face lifeless as he looked at the huge white beast shadow. The red horn on the beast's head was bright and glistening, as dazzling as blood. Zhao Xiong opened his mouth. After a long while, a hoarse and trembling voice came out. Wizard. Mythological beast Wizard, his gaze suddenly landed on the young man below the divine beast. You, who exactly are you? What does it have to do with the Lan imperial family? No, that's not right. It wasn't like he hadn't seen the divine beast base summoned by the Lan imperial clan before. However, the divine beast's aura and might weren't even a tenth of this by Zay's. Who was this young man? Not to mention Zhao Xiong, even Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui ignored the pain all over their bodies and looked at Luo Yu in shock. Especially Murong Shui. From the first time she saw this young man controlling the puppets on top of Tianlang Palace's walls, she felt that this young man was too cute. Chapter 21-26. When he smiled, two dimples appeared on his cheeks, giving off a sense of closeness like a younger brother next door. It made her want to pull him into her arms and rub him hard. That was why Murong Shui liked to tease him in the following days. Seeing him jump up and down, mocking her indifferently made her heart itch even more. However, at this moment, the young man with his eyes drooped. There was no change in his appearance, but the aura he exuded gave off a feeling of superiority, as if he could make heaven and earth bow down to him. Speak! Zhao Xiong roared. I'm asking you, did you hear me? Who on earth are you? What does it have to do with the Lan royal family? The next moment, the drooping youth slowly raised his head. And the mythological beast Bai Zai, whose eyes had been closed, also gradually opened them. Boom! Zhao Xiong didn't know whether he met the youth's eyes or Bai Zai's huge copper bell. However, he felt that his soul and internal organs had been hit hard. Bai Zai looked down at him coldly from above. It slowly raised its left foreleg and slapped towards him. Bai Zai's movements were very slow, as if it didn't care if it hit hard or not. But Zhao Xiong felt as if his body was locked in place, and he couldn't move at all. Boom! With a loud sound, Zhao Xiong was sent flying, all the bones in his body cracking. He screamed and fell heavily to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood and couldn't get up for a long time. Murong Shui licked her lips and looked at Luo Yu in a daze. So powerful. Zhao Xiong was an astral projection cultivator, yet he was sent flying by Bai Zai summoned by Lan Luo Yu. They had seen the Lan royal family summoned by Zai before, but it didn't have this kind of power. You and the Lan royal family. Before Murong Shui could finish, Luo Yu's body suddenly swayed and she fell down. Bai Zai, who was in the sky, let out a low roar and quickly returned to Luo Yu's body. Luo Yu! Murong Shui and Chu Tianyu rushed over and helped her up. But they found that Luo Yu's eyes were tightly shut, her face pale, and even her lips pale. Her spiritual power was almost completely depleted. Murong Shui hurriedly took out a spirit-replenishing pill and was about to feed it. Suddenly, Chu Tianyu's expression changed greatly, and he swiftly withdrew the crimson flame sword. Immediately after, a large hole burst open in his chest. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and his entire body was sent flying. Captain! Murong Shui cried out in alarm. She slowly turned around and saw Zhao Xiong walking towards them, his face pale and covered in blood. He looked battered and exhausted, and his injuries were not light, but Zhao Xiong had an ecstatic smile on his face. His greedy and excited eyes stared at the unconscious Luo Yu. A young man who can summon the real divine beast by Zai. Ha ha ha, I'm rich. As long as I can bring you back, not only will I be punished, I'm afraid the Marquis will reward me greatly. Murong Shui hurriedly took out her Cloudfrost damask and placed it in front of Luo Yu. However, as Zhao Xiong walked closer and closer, he could feel the oppressive might of a leaving Aperture Realm cultivator emanating from him. His body trembled uncontrollably, and despair surfaced in his eyes. Zhao Xiong had just been sent flying by the divine beast by Zai, and he had indeed suffered considerable injuries. But even an injured leaving Aperture Realm cultivator was not someone that two mere Golden Core cultivators could contend against. Not to mention that she and Chu Tianyu were also riddled with injuries and were like arrows at the end of their flight. Chapter 21-27. But no matter what, even if she had to die, she wouldn't let this scum hurt Luo Yu. All of Murong Shui's spiritual power surged wildly. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, but she didn't even bother to wipe it away. She attacked Zhao Xiong. The Cloudfrost silk transformed into a viper, then into a sharp sword. It pierced through the air with a shrill whistle, stirring up the surrounding spiritual power. However, such a huge commotion only made Zhao Xiong chuckle in disdain. Suddenly, he grabbed at the air. The curled Cloudfrost silk was caught by him. Bang! Zhao Xiong viciously slammed his palm into Murong Shui's chest, crackling with electricity. A ball of fire sprang up from Murong Shui's chest, accompanied by the sizzling sound of her flesh being roasted. Murong Shui cried out in pain and let go of the Cloudfrost silk. Zhao Xiong didn't even look at Murong Shui as he strode towards Luo Yu. His blood was boiling, and his heart was filled with excitement and greed. But when he thought of Bai Zai's power, he couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Although this youth was currently unconscious, what if he woke up again and summoned the divine beast Bai Zai again? At that time, would he be able to block the divine beast's second attack? At this thought, Zhao Xiong felt all of his bones and organs ache. His eyes slowly glowed with a savage light. To summon Bai Zai, I only need to activate the Orb of Souls. There's no need to let this brat live unscathed. Cut off his arms and legs, shatter his dantian, save a bit of spiritual power to activate the orb, then bring him back. Zhao Xiong sneered and slowly raised his sword, swinging it down at the youth on the ground. The sword whistled towards Luo Yu's hands. Clang! The sword didn't manage to cut off Luo Yu's hands. Chu Tianyu blocked it halfway. But Chu Tianyu's spiritual power was depleted, and his life force was exhausted. How could he be a match for Zhao Xiong? Zhao Xiong smashed him into the ground with a single palm, blood gushing out. He sneered and glanced at Chu Tianyu condescendingly. Don't be in such a hurry, Crown Prince, and eldest Miss Murong. It'll be your turn soon. Oh, and the unconscious Chu Tianyu's mother. Zhao Xiong licked his lips hungrily. Before he sent her back, he could have a good time. He believed that when Master Hote saw the mythological beast Bai Zai that he brought back, he would definitely not be stingy with a woman. Maybe he would even reward him directly. However, the urgent matter at hand was to remove the hidden danger and cripple this strange young man. However, just as Zhao Xiong raised his sword, he suddenly felt a bloody shadow pouncing at him. A poochie sound rang out. The long sword in his hand pierced through that person's body, causing blood to gush out. However, he was also tightly hugged, and for a moment, he couldn't use it. Shwe, quick! Run with him! Return to the soaring dragons to ask for help. Run! Chu Tianyu let out a hoarse roar, completely ignoring the long sword in his abdomen, and tightly hugged Zhao Xiong. Murongshue's eyes were bloodshot. She bit down hard on her lip until it bled. But she didn't hesitate, and she didn't disappoint Chu Tianyo's sacrifice. She rushed towards Luo Yu like lightning, picked him up, and jumped onto the cloud frost silk. The instant the two of them leapt onto the cloud frost silk, Luo Yu slowly opened her eyes under the assault of the pungent smell of blood. However, the moment she opened her eyes, she saw a scene that made her tremble with fear. The sword that Zhao Xiong had stabbed into Chu Tianyo's body exploded with lightning, blasting a large hole in his abdomen. Chapter 21-28. Zhao Xiong sent him flying with a kick and laughed coldly. A mere golden core cultivator wants to self-destruct and injure me. You're overestimating yourself. A genius from Dragon Ascension. The leader of Team Qilin. A genius from the younger generation. Ha 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 ha, now that your Dantian has been destroyed, you're useless from now on. With that, he didn't look at Chu Tianyu again. His eyes shone as he pounced on Luo Yu. Kid, your divine beast by Zhe, your soul bead, they're all mine. Luo Yu had yet to recover from the shock of seeing a hole in Chu Tianyo's body. Intense malice and murderous intent assaulted his senses. Before he could react, Murongxue suddenly turned around and shielded him in her arms. She used her back to withstand Zhao Xiong's lightning-infused punch. Puff! Blood sprayed onto Luo Yu's neck. His eyes widened abruptly, and his heart trembled. In a trance, a similar scene flashed before his eyes. Despair, mournfulness, madness, and blood, but he was powerless. He was too weak to do anything. Why? Luo Yu's voice was hoarse and broken. Why? Murongxue raised her blood-stained, pale face and smiled wickedly. If I hadn't left you here, you wouldn't be in such danger. What I, Murongxue, hate the most in my life, is owing others, especially owing the little, handsome boy I like. Ah. Murongxue let out a blood-curdling scream as she vomited another mouthful of blood. But instead of using all her spiritual power to form a spiritual barrier to protect herself, she poured it into the cloud frost silk. He let his cloud frost silk carry Luo Yu further away. Luo Yu suddenly stood up and tried to rush out. But he found that Murongxue had not only used her remaining spiritual power to activate the cloud frost silk, but also set up a spiritual barrier to prevent him from leaving. Murongxue. Chu Tianyu. What are you doing? Why are you risking your life to protect me, who has nothing to do with you? Why? Luo Yu madly pounded on the spiritual barrier, causing the air to explode. However, his spiritual power was completely exhausted when he summoned the divine beast by Zhe, and he could no longer circulate it. Seeing that Zhao Xiong had been blocked time and time again, he finally flew into a rage out of humiliation and slashed at Murongxue. Luo Yu's eyes turned red in an instant, as if boiling liquid was about to gush out of her body. The cloud frost silk beneath his feet, which had been flying as fast as lightning, seemed to have sensed some terrifying power. It trembled slightly and stopped. At this moment, the sound of a zither came from afar and whistled over. There was clearly no one, no shadow, no magic treasure. However, there were tens of millions of sword cheese in the air, carrying leaves and flying flowers as they pounced towards Zhao Xiong. Zhao Xiong was caught off guard and a cut appeared on his face. The poison on the leaf seeped into his body, causing his movements to stagnate. He had no choice but to stop killing Murongxue. Who is it? Zhao Xiong roared, looking in the direction of the sword qi. Show yourself. Up in the sky, Luo Yu heard the music and saw the sword rain formed by the falling leaves. It was as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over him, but his eyes immediately became wet. Sixth senior sister. He was like a child who had been wronged and finally found someone who could support him. He wanted to say something, but could only choke out, "Sixth senior sister. Sixth senior sister. Sixth senior sister." Chapter 21-29. Chu Tianyu jerks his head up, looking in the direction of the zither. The vitality in his body is clearly being hollowed out bit by bit, but he's like an idiot, unable to shift his gaze away. Swish! The sword light streaks across the sky like a meteor. In the next moment, it's already flying in front of Luo Yu. On the long sword, there's a young girl in snow-white clothes. She has a devastatingly beautiful appearance, but is as cold as frost. Beside her, there's also a flying sword, and standing on it is an incomparably adorable little boy with a cold face. As soon as Mayan sees Luo Yu covered in blood, her complexion is deathly pale, and she's on the verge of collapse. A cold glint flashes through her eyes. Xiao Bao clenches his small fists, gritting his teeth. "Uncle Xiao Qi, who hurt you? Xiao Bao will avenge you." Mayan waves her hand, and the spiritual power barrier on the cloudy frost silk disappears. Luo Yu suddenly falls forward, and she catches her. "Sixth sister, hurry, hurry and save Murong Shui and Chu Tianyu." Ignoring her own injuries, Luo Yu anxiously says, "They did it to protect me." Mayan nods, no longer hesitating, and stoops down. She can't help but be startled by the two's injuries. Murong Shui is all right, only her internal organs have been struck and burned by the lightning. Although the injuries aren't light, they can still be healed after resting in bed for a few months. But Chu Tianyu, there's a huge bloody hole in his abdomen, revealing itself before Mayan's eyes. Charred flesh and internal organs can be seen from the bloody hole. Most importantly, more than half of his dantian has been destroyed. Chu Tianyu, even if he's lucky enough to survive, he might not be able to restore his original cultivation and talent. She remembers what Xiao Qi said, that Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui fell to this state in order to protect him. Mayan's throat seems to be blocked by something. But before she could speak, she hears Chu Tianyu's hoarse voice, "Yi. Jun Mayan, I'm sorry." His body turns cold inch by inch, and his vision gradually blurs, but the words he wants to say are getting clearer and clearer. So clear that it's as if this bit of guilt, this obsession, is engraved in the depths of his soul, making him want to say it even in death. "Threatening you, impersonating you, involving your junior brother. Jun Mayan, I have too many apologies. Take Luo Yu and leave. Go. You still have a chance to escape. Don't be implicated by me again. I only have one thing to ask of you. Save my mother. She is my only concern in this world." Mu Yan takes a deep breath and slowly says, "Chu Tianyu, do you think that the debt you owe me is so easy to pay off? The ones in the Tianguang ruins and the chaotic tower were still far from enough. Don't you think you can count on me to save your mother?" Chu Tianyu's originally unfocused eyes dimmed, as if they had lost all their radiance. However, Mayan's next words caused him to be stunned. "Seeing that you protected little Seven, there's no harm in me saving your life. But in this way, you owe me even more." Mu Yan sneered, converting it should be at least 10 million high-grade spar. "Next, you'd better think about how you're going to pay me back." Chu Tianyu opens his mouth, but Mu Yan doesn't wait for him to speak, stuffing an elixir into his mouth. Soon after, the sound of the zither suddenly resounds. Chu Tianyu only feels that his originally ice-cold body is suddenly soaked in warm spring water. Blurred for a long time, a beautiful dream that he never dared to hope for, wraps around his soul little by little, making him intoxicated. Chapter 21-30. Floating like a dream, activates. You still want to save a cripple with a shattered dantian. Zhao Xiong's mocking laughter comes from behind, little girl, do you think you're the reincarnation of the immortal doctor? As he speaks, a sword whistles and slashes down. Mu Yen doesn't turn around, still playing the zither. But from the side, a sword rushes out and directly slashes at Zhao Xiong's flying sword. A clanging sound. Zhao Xiong's flying sword shakes in the air, making a cracking sound and shattering. This is impossible. Although his flying sword is not as divine as Chu Tinyo's crimson flame sword, it is still a 9th-grade flying sword. After being infused with spiritual energy, even the crimson flame sword can't cut it. How could this seemingly black and unremarkable sword cut his 9th-grade flying sword in half? Zhao Xiong's eyes are fixed on the gently swaying sword. When he sees that plain and inconspicuous sword slowly flying to the hand of the 5-year-old child, he can't help but widen his eyes in shock. So, the one who cut his 9th-grade flying sword is a 5-year-old child. Who is he? However, Zhao Xiong quickly comes back to his senses. Just now, he was really shocked. But now he finds out that this child is very powerful enough that he shouldn't be at his age. But in the end, his cultivation is only at the gold core stage. Di Mingju previously covered up Xiao Bao's immortal physique and pseudo-immortal realm. 1, 2, 3, 4, so what if it's 4 gold cores? In his eyes, they are just a group of ants that can be crushed at any time. Zhao Xiong doesn't take out another magic weapon, but directly clenches his right hand into a fist. Crackling thunder flashes around his fist. His figure suddenly disappears, and when he reappears, he's already in front of Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao's blue eyes suddenly widen. At this moment, he also feels the power and terror of an out-of-body stage cultivator. That speed, that rolling spiritual energy, makes him feel like he can topple the mountains and overturn the seas, and is unstoppable. Little master, retreat. Bai Xie's voice comes to his ears. Xiao Bao's figure flashes, and in the nick of time, he takes a step back and fiercely swings the Bai Xie sword in his hand. Boom! There was a violent impact, and Xiao Bao was sent flying several meters away by the shockwave before he managed to stabilize himself. The evil warding sword in his hand glowed with a dark red light. This was the energy that Bai Xie had taken on the young mistress's attack that was beyond its limit. Zhao Xiong did not retreat. Instead, he looked at the sword in Xiao Bao's hand in shock. How could this be? Isn't this the Bixia sword that the Marquis has nurtured for hundreds of years? Why is it in your hands? If one were to say that Zhao Xiong was greedy when he saw Bai Zhe in the rain, then when he saw the Bixia sword, he was so excited that his breathing became erratic. Evil warding sword. That was the evil warding sword that Master Ho had been looking forward to for hundreds of years. Master Ho flew into a rage when he heard that the Bixia sword was taken away and that Di Yudao was killed. Unexpectedly, the evil warding sword was in the hands of a 5-year-old child. Furthermore, it was clear that it no longer had any demonic aura and could be controlled. Zhao Xiong was so excited that his whole body was trembling. Without thinking, he reached out to grab Xiao Bao. He was going to bring this strange kid and the evil warding sword back to Master Ho. Ding dong. The light sound of the zither, like a shooting star, instantly forced Zhao Xiong to retreat. Mu Yen, who had finished playing, slowly stood up and stood in front of Xiao Bao. She said in a low voice, "Xiao Qi, bring them back to the Soaring Dragon sect to ask for help. Things may become more troublesome." Chapter 2131. But sixth sister, you're alone. Luo Yu says anxiously. Before Mu Yen can speak, Xiao Bao already says loudly, "I'm not leaving." Xiao Bao wants to fight with Niangqin. Xiao Bao wants to protect Niangqin. Mu Yen lowers her head and meets a pair of clear, icy blue eyes. There's stubbornness, tenacity, and persistence in those eyes. Once they've made up their mind, they'll press forward with an indomitable and disdainful momentum. Why does it feel like Xiao Bao and Di Mingju are becoming more and more alike? Especially those eyes. Mu Yan's mouth slowly hooks up into a shallow smile, and she looks at Luo Yu. I'm not alone. Xiao Bao, today, mother and child, let's fight side by side. Xiao Bao's delicate little face suddenly blooms with a brilliant smile, and his whole person seems to come alive and beautiful. He nods heavily, holding the evil warding sword that's almost longer than him, and stands by Mu Yan's side. In his big blue eyes, there's joy and pride that can't be dissolved. Nyangqin said to fight side by side with him. He's not a burden, he's not a child, he's a man who can protect Nyangqin and share her worries. Luo Yu glances at the two, clenches his teeth, and picks up the unconscious Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui, one in each hand. He also takes the unconscious middle-aged woman and leaves like lightning. Sixth sister is right, it's useless for him to stay here. And things may become more troublesome. Zhao Xiong's helpers may come soon. Right now, they're too weak. Even if the Xiaoyao 7 join forces, they'll be completely annihilated if they encounter two leaving aperture cultivators. The only thing he can do now is to ask for help from Longting's mentor. Even so, Luo Yu can't help but clench his hands and bite his lips. He's still too weak, too weak. He had to become stronger. He had to become stronger. Only then would he be able to do so. When Luo Yu leaves with Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui, Zhao Xiong hasn't come back to his senses. His eyes are glued to the girl under the moonlight, simply mesmerized. Beautiful, she's too beautiful. Chu Tianyu's mother is already a stunner. She makes his heart burn, and he thinks for a long time. Compared to the girl in front of him, the so-called marquis's wife can only be considered mediocre. The bright moonlight fell on the girl's porcelain-like skin and her long black hair that was like a waterfall. Her clean facial features looked mysterious and seductive in the hazy light. Gulp. Zhao Xiong swallowed a mouthful of saliva, his eyes drifting. This place was covered with the sky and the earth, and the time was just right. If he could play with this stunning beauty here, how wonderful would that be? Zhao Xiong's saliva almost dripped out of his mouth. His entire body was boiling hot, and he couldn't wait. However, at this moment, a fluctuation of spiritual energy accompanied by the whistling sound of the cloudfrost silk traveled over. Zhao Xiong came back to his senses and realized that Luo Yu had actually brought Chu Tianyu and the others away. His brows furrowed. If he really let these people escape, he would definitely have to bear the consequences. However, when he saw Mu Yan and Xiao Bao blocking his way, Zhao Xiong was not anxious at all. Instead, he let out a sneer. Little beauty, do you know how far it is from here to Soaring Dragon? They definitely won't be able to arrive within a quarter of an hour. He said leisurely and contentedly, I'll only need less than half a cup of tea's time to finish you all, and it won't take more than a few breaths to catch up to them. When that time comes, they won't be able to escape from the palm of my hand. An astral body cultivator no longer needed to fly on a sword. Chapter 2132. His divine sense could shrink several miles into the ground. Although it consumes a lot of spiritual power, its speed is several times faster than a flying magic weapon. Therefore, Zhao Xiong really isn't worried. The girl blocking him is only at Gold Core stage, and even at the first rank. Zhao Xiong feels that even if he is carefree, crushing her to death would be like crushing an ant. Of course, he can't bear to crush such a delicate beauty to death. After a while, he'll make her faint, and then catch those little bastards, then he can properly enjoy himself. As for Xiao Bao, who is standing next to Mu Yan, Zhao Xiong doesn't even put him in his eyes. He's just a baby, so what if he has the Bixia sword? And the Bixia sword will soon be his too. Thinking of the great contribution he's about to make today, Zhao Xiong's heart is filled with pride and excitement. Even the tone of his voice when he speaks to Mu Yan has become soft and gentle. Little beauty, are you a student of Longting? Do you know who I am, and what is my cultivation? As he speaks, a demon binding rope appears in his hand, and he gently lashes it like a whip. There's a snap. A huge blue stone in the distance immediately explodes into powder. Zhao Xiong looks over and sees that under the moonlight, the girl's beautiful eyes are wide open, looking at the cracked blue stone. Her sparkling and translucent skin appears even paler. He thinks it's because she's afraid, and he can't help but become more proud. You'd better think clearly about what will happen to you if you oppose me. On the contrary, if you're willing to follow me, I promise that in the future, you'll eat and drink well. Moreover, your days will definitely be more ecstatic than now. Zhao Xiong can't help but reach out to touch the girl's smooth and flawless face. The girl casually took a step back and dodged his hand. Zhao Xiong isn't annoyed. He knows that this woman will soon have no other choice but to cry and beg for mercy and favor. But very quickly, his face suddenly stiffens. Xiao Bao. Mu Yan only softly calls out these two words. Xiao Bao immediately raises the Bixia sword in his hand, and swings it at a boulder that's even bigger than the one that just cracked. Boom! The blue stone instantly explodes, smoke and dust swirls, and the air waves are monstrous. Mayan looks at Zhao Xiong with a smile that isn't a smile. Take a guess, what is my son's identity, and what is his cultivation? Zhao Xiong looked at the 5 or 6-year-old child, who looked at him with a mocking gaze. His face turned green and white. Just a moment ago, he was still very proud of his deterrence. In the blink of an eye, a little child was gone. His face was slapped so hard that it sounded like a slap. Damn it! 2 golden core realm small fries, a silly little girl, and a little beast actually dared to mock him, a dignified leaving aperture realm cultivator. Zhao Xiong's face instantly twisted. Fine, since you want to court death and suffer, then I'll fulfill your wish. Don't cry and beg for mercy when I crush and ravage your soft and delicate body. It just so happened that Chu Tianyu and the others had left for quite some time, and if they didn't end the battle quickly, then it might cause trouble. Zhao Xiong suddenly disappears, and when his figure reappears, he's already in front of Mu Yan. The demon binding rope in his hand coils around Mayan's body like a viper. The powerful coercion of an leaving aperture realm cultivator is released, and the spiritual power surges like an avalanche, wanting to annihilate Mayan. Looking at the girl who's frozen in place, unable to move, Zhao Xiong's mouth hooks up into a sneer. Chapter 2133. The demon binding rope spins around, and hangs down to the ground. It's empty inside, nothing is tied up. How could this be? Where is she? In the next moment, Zhao Xiong suddenly feels a strong sense of unease. This is the instinctive sense of crisis of an leaving body cultivator, as well as his many years of fighting experience. Without thinking, Zhao Xiong rolls to the side. But there's still a piercing and burning pain on his scalp, and he can't help but let out a muffled groan. With great difficulty, Zhao Xiong stands still and touches his scalp, only to find that a large chunk of his hair has been shaved off. Blood rolls down his cheeks. In front of him, the girl with picturesque features hooks up her captivating red lips, and lets out a regretful sigh. He actually dodged it, what a pity. Zhao Xiong glares at her. Who are you? How can a core formation cultivator be so fast? Yes, that speed is so fast that he didn't even notice that the person in front of him has disappeared. It was so fast that he had to rely on his instincts to dodge the fatal blow. Mayan turns her hand over, and the Tian Mo Qin turns into 7 colored swords, circling around her. Zhao Xiong is even more bewildered, transforming the zither into a sword. What kind of magic weapon is this? Why haven't I heard of it or seen it before? Just as this thought flashes through his mind, the 7 swords attack him like a sudden clap of thunder. Zhao Xiong withstands the sharp pain on his head and quickly takes a step back. However, when the 7 swords came close to him, he felt at ease. Fortunately, although they look intimidating, they're only at the level of core formation. That spiritual power fluctuation, he can casually wave his hand, whoosh. A snow-white figure suddenly rushes in front of him. Slender, jade-like fingers lightly grasp the air. The 7 colored flying swords seem to be summoned, and they suddenly gather together, merging into one. The sparkling and translucent swords shine brightly under the moonlight, their brilliance dazzling. Zhao Xiong suddenly widens his eyes, his heart thumping hard. Danger! He doesn't feel anything from each of the 7 colored swords. But when they merge into one, it actually makes him feel an indescribable danger. Without thinking, Zhao Xiong quickly retreated with his snake-like footwork, avoiding the 7 absolute sword. At the same time, he takes out a giant axe from his storage ring, and with an unrestrained imposing manner, he ruthlessly cleaves it towards Mu Yan. At this moment, Zhao Xiong finally didn't dare hold back and didn't dare to have any charming thoughts. This was because he discovered that this seemingly frail young girl before him was actually so powerful. He was actually much stronger than Chu Tianyu at his peak. Who was this girl? Zhao Xiong barely escaped the fatal blow of the 7 absolute swords. The giant axe in his hand danced vigorously, and thunder rumbled. The girl, who had been charging forward with indomitable will, was forced to retreat. Just as he was about to heave a sigh of relief, his pupils suddenly shrank. His body quickly moved to the side, but a sharp pain still came from his back. Ah! Zhao Xiong let out a shrill scream and looked down. A black long sword pierced through his lower left abdomen. Black air that was tainted with blood was devouring his spiritual energy, blood, and soul non-stop, as if it were going to suck him dry. This is the Bixia sword. Zhao Xiong tumbled and crawled away, fleeing 100 meters away. Only then did he turn his head to look back in horror. He saw that behind the place where he had just been standing, there was a little doll carved from jade. Expressionlessly, he retrieved the black long sword and returned to Mu Yan's side. Chapter 2134. Xiao Bao purses his lips, I didn't hit his heart. Mu Yan pats his head and smiles, Xiao Bao did a good job. He didn't notice your Reiki at all. Xiao Bao's eyes brighten. His aura and Reiki soar. Zhao Xiong clutches his lower left abdomen. Blood oozes out from his fingertips. The blood that flowed down from his forehead blurred his vision. Zhao Xiong takes out an elixir and stuffs it into his mouth. He stares at Mu Yan. Xiao Bao's sword has seriously injured him. But he is more shocked by the girl in front of him. If it wasn't for the girl's powerful attack that distracted him, he wouldn't have been hurt by Xiao Bao's sneak attack, even with the Bixia sword. Because this girl is only at the early golden core stage, she attracted all his attention. He didn't notice Xiao Bao's sneak attack. The spiritual power was as dense as the sea, the powerful divine sense, the frightening speed, and the sword intent that even made him feel threatened. In this world, could there be such a strong golden core cultivator? How? No. No. There is one. Zhao Xiong's eyes widen, his pupils constricting, Lord of 6 Stars. Lord of 6 Stars, Yap Liang Chen. You are Yap Liang Chen. The one who killed 6 people on the soaring dragon list, the one who stands at the peak of all golden core cultivators, the only Lord of 6 Stars in history. The girl in front of him curls up her lips, her smile lazy and disdainful. Yes. Dog of the Dingwa Manor. I've heard a lot about you. Today is the time to settle the score. From the moment Zhao Xiong called out the Bixia sword, Mu Yan guessed that this person's master must be Chu Tianyou's father, Dingwa Marquis. He must be the one who trapped the Bixia sword and almost killed Xiao Bao. He was the one who ordered Di Yudao to carry out the inhumane Zhao Tianshou experiment, causing Yao Guang and Sui Luan to be separated by life and death. When Tian Haiba was struggling on his deathbed, he still wanted to release the fire beacon paper crane. The person he wanted to send the message to should also be this Marquis of Dingwa. Mu Yan's eyes darkened. The grudges between him and this Dingwa Marquis were truly numerous. There was no rush. There would come a day when everything would be accounted for, one by one. Zhao Xiong stared at her in disbelief. So you were the one who destroyed Zhao Tianshou's experiment and caused the Bixia sword to be lost. How dare you? Do you know what happens to those who go against Marquis? Mu Yan raises her eyebrows and is about to speak. Xiao Bao spoke in his crisp, childish voice, enunciating each word in a sonorous voice. Do you know who my daddy is? Offending my mother is the same as offending my father. Do you know the consequences of offending my father? Mu Yan, baby, why didn't I know that you admired your father so much? Usually, when they met, he would be at loggerheads with him, but now, he was even more nimble than him in using the tiger's skin. Mu Yan held the 7 absolute sword in her hand horizontally. Under Zhao Xiong's bewildered gaze, she sneered, so much nonsense. Are you going to fight or not? If Vice Dean Kong comes in a while, you won't even have the chance to escape. Zhao Xiong stared blankly at first, then he showed an incredulous expression. Shouldn't she be stalling for time, even selling her body until Chu Tianyou's request for help was successful? Chapter 2135. But in reality. In fact, not only does she not have the slightest thought of delaying time, but she also reminds herself. Does she really think that with 2 gold core stage cultivators, a little girl and a baby, they can defeat me, a strong leaving body stage cultivator? Zhao Xiong is so shocked by his own guess that he can't recover. Then, there's the anger of being completely despised. 2 trifling gold core stage cultivators dare to be so arrogant in front of me. Good. Good. Since you want to court death, I'll help you. Zhao Xiong slowly pulls out a second sword. This sword is completely black, with a faint reddish-brown color. It seems to be inferior to his first sword, probably only at the 7th or 8th stage. But inexplicably, Mayan feels a dangerous aura. Xiuxian Continent, Lingxi Valley. This place was originally a paradise with verdant hills and clear waters, birds singing and flowers fragrant. But at this moment, it's filled with a rotten stench. At the entrance of a narrow valley, a tall earthen wall rises from the ground, densely engraved with runes. The sky is covered with a huge golden net, which is also covered with runes. Behind the earthen wall, there are so many praying ghosts that it makes one's scalp numb. Moreover, they're still pouring out of the barrier. These praying ghosts keep hitting the earthen wall, rising to the sky, wanting to rush out of the golden net. But they're always blocked by the earthen wall and golden net. But every time the praying ghosts hit, the golden net and earthen wall flickers, the runes fading a little. Bang! Dozens of praying ghosts roar, rushing to the sky, hitting the golden net, and are fiercely bounced back. On the other side of the earthen wall, several people suddenly spit out blood, their faces pale, on the verge of collapse. At the same time, the runes on the golden net have also faded a lot. No, the golden light array will not be able to stop them soon. Everyone's faces are ashen, it's over, everything is over. The barrier has not been repaired, and the praying ghosts are still pouring out. At this time, the entire back mountain of Lingsea Valley has been completely occupied by the praying ghosts. The only thing they can defend is this narrow valley. Once this valley was breached, then all the people in Spirit Rhino Valley, including all the living beings in the cities adjacent to Spirit Rhino Valley, would become food for the praying ghosts. Moreover, this disaster would soon spread to the entire Shushan continent. More and more ghouls gathered in the valley, and there was no time to repair the runes on the earth wall and the golden net. Everyone's heart was filled with despair. At this moment, someone suddenly pointed to the north and shouted, "Look, who's that?" In the sky, a tall figure suddenly appeared above everyone's head from 100 miles away and slowly descended. On the other side of the mud wall, the roars of the poltergeist shook the sky. On the other side of the mud wall, there was complete silence. Everyone stared blankly at the person who had suddenly appeared, unable to believe their eyes. "Emperor, Emperor!" Someone called out in a trembling voice. There were even quite a few people from Spirit Rhino Valley whose eyes instantly turned red. Their mouths opened as if wanting to say something, yet not a single word came out. They all knew that many years ago, Spirit Rhino Valley belonged to the Polar Domain. However, after the current Spirit Rhino Valley's Valley Master Heartwarming succeeded the position, he suddenly announced that he would leave the Polar Domain and submit to the Nether Domain. At that time, many people strongly opposed it, but they were all suppressed by Heartwarming's thunderous methods. In the end, the Spirit Rhino Valley and the surrounding cities all became the territory of the Nether Realm. But now, Chapter 2136. Now that the Spirit Rhino Valley had met with a great change, the Nether Realm had only symbolically sent 2 envoys to pacify them, and did not provide any more assistance. Meanwhile, the Polar Domain, which they had thought had long since abandoned Spirit Rhino Valley, had instead come to their aid. Moreover, the one who came was a supreme sovereign of the Polar Domain. "We greet the monarch." The people of the Spirit Rhino Valley knelt down one after another, many of them shedding tears, their faces filled with guilt. Only Heartwarming's face alternated between green and white, and it was completely unsightly. Deming-ju doesn't even spare them a glance, raising his hand. The earthen wall and the golden net suddenly collapsed. Everyone was startled. If the golden light formation collapsed, wouldn't the poltergeist ghosts rush out? Deming-ju, you didn't come to rescue us. Heartwarming could be considered to have finally found an opportunity, as he roared out in a threatening manner, "You are here to add insult to injury, to consign my entire Spirit Rhino Valley to eternal damnation." Defeating armies turned around and looked at him coldly. Suddenly, he raised his hand and slapped him hard across the face. For Heartwarming to be able to become the Valley Master of the Spirit Rhino Valley, his cultivation was naturally extremely high. Adding on the fact that all the benefits he had obtained from the Nether Domain over the years, he had practically used them all on himself. In terms of real cultivation, he was even slightly higher than defeating armies. But when defeating armies' ice-cold and inorganic eyes looked over, he felt as if he had been frozen in place. His entire body felt cold, and he couldn't even budge. Piak! Heartwarming was slapped so hard that he flew up into the sky. Then, he landed heavily on the ground and fell flat on his face. However, at this moment, no one paid any attention to Heartwarming. Because the densely packed poltergeist ghosts, with a pungent stench, opened their bloody mouths and fangs like sacrificial bulls and crazily rushed out. Some of the more cowardly disciples of the Spirit Rhino Valley directly fell on their buttocks, their legs trembling as their faces were filled with despair. Deming-ju narrows his eyes. He suddenly raises his hand, and a weapon that looks like a knife, but isn't a knife, or a sword, but isn't a sword, appears in the hollow of his palm. Almost at the same instant the weapon appeared. The poltergeist ghosts that were swarming over suddenly stopped. It was clearly a creature without intelligence and 5 senses, but at this moment, it was faintly showing fear and hesitating to move forward. The blade in Di Mingju's hand gently swings forward. All the vengeful ghosts let out shrill screams of terror. Following that, rows of poltergeist ghosts melted like ice sculptures, turning into pools of blood one after another. The blood quickly seeped into the ground and disappeared. The second strike, the third strike, 6 strikes in a row, unstoppable and devastating. Everyone could only watch helplessly. They were powerless and afraid of the starved ghosts. Under Di Mingju's 6 effortless and relaxed sword strokes, they are like clay and paper, without the slightest bit of power to resist. Gulp. Gulp. The sound of swallowing saliva could be heard one after another. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief and shock, which then slowly turned into a crazed passion. Was this the strength of the Polar Domain's sovereign lord? Is this the strength of the strongest person in the Shushan continent? Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor! Emperor, we are willing to follow you forever and believe in you. Please forgive us for betraying you in the past and let us be your subjects forever. Everyone knelt on the ground, kowtowing over and over again as they shouted. Di Mingju didn't even glance at them, and softly called out, "Defeating armies." Defeating armies understood, and immediately took out an arrayed disc from his bosom. He leapt to the other side of the valley, and threw it forward. Chapter 2137. A barrier 100 times stronger than the golden array just now completely sealed off the other end of the valley. The people of Spirit Rhinoceros Valley gathered around Di Mingju, asking worriedly, "Monarch, what should we do? Should we completely abandon Spirit Rhinoceros Valley? Turn this place into a forbidden zone?" Were the poltergeist ghosts that Di Mingju had just killed dead? Of course not. These poltergeist ghosts, unless they were all killed in one go, leaving not a single one alive outside the barrier. Otherwise, they would resurrect infinitely many times by the side of the barrier. And each resurrection of the poltergeist ghosts would be stronger than the last. The poltergeist ghosts within the barrier would continue to pour out. There was no end to killing, no end to exterminating. This was the truly terrifying aspect of the poltergeist ghosts. If there was really no other way, then the only way was to use a great array to completely seal off this area, slowly draining the spiritual energy and immortal energy within, turning it into a forbidden zone. But even so, the poltergeist ghosts would not die, only turning into blood that seeped into the ground. When spiritual energy flowed in, they would immediately resurrect. And at that time, the poltergeist ghosts that everyone would have to face would be several times or even more than before. He Qiming suddenly said with some flattery and ill intent, "My Spirit Rhinoceros Valley's hundreds of years of business, how can we casually abandon it? Monarch is so powerful, one person and one sword can kill all the poltergeist ghosts, don't you think so?" The moment he said this, not to mention those cultivators who came to help. Even the disciples and elders of Spirit Rhinoceros Valley cast looks of disgust and shock. Elder Du of Spirit Rhinoceros Valley, who had the fiercest temper, said rudely, "He Qiming, if not for you and those bastards of the Nether Domain breaking the barrier, how could so many poltergeist ghosts come out? Right now, there are at least hundreds of thousands of poltergeist ghosts in the back mountain. You actually want Monarch to take the risk alone? What kind of heart do you have? If you are so capable, why don't you go in yourself and kill all the poltergeist ghosts?" He Qiming's face twisted, unable to say a word for a long time. Raising his head, he trembled all over as he met Monarch Mingju's icy blue eyes, unconsciously kneeling down. "Monarch, Monarch, I definitely do not have such intentions, I only admire Monarch's strength and omnipotence. Thank you, Monarch, for coming to the rescue of Spirit Rhino Valley today. This subordinate is willing to lead Spirit Rhino Valley back to the Polar Domain. As he spoke, he even raised his head and used his old face, which had been beaten up by defeating armies, to reveal a flattering smile. However, as soon as she raises her head, she meets Di Mingju's condescending eyes that seem to be able to see through everything. He couldn't help but shiver. That clever mouth of hers could no longer utter a single word. Valley Master have you forgotten how you swore that you looked down on the polar domain and wanted to join the nether domain more than 10 years ago? Now that your new master has abandoned you, you want to return to the polar domain while wagging your tail. Do you think the polar domain is your home? You think you can come and go as you please? A loud voice came from behind them, and everyone turned to look. They saw that Di Mingju's trusted aides, Han Yi, Ying Mei, and Xing Lang, all walk forward and kneel down in front of Di Mingju. We pay our respects to Monarch. Just a moment ago, Di Mingju's expression didn't change when facing tens of thousands of poltergeist ghosts, and he was indifferent to He Qiming's disgust. The moment he sees Xing Lang, the pupils of his eyes suddenly contract. Xing Lang, why are you here? Xing Lang shrinks back a bit. He reveals a cautious and anxious expression. Jun Shang, this subordinate heard that you risked your life, your precious body. How could you set foot in such a dangerous place? It would be better to let this subordinate do this. You can go, and accompany Miss June. Chapter 2138. Cultivation Continent, Dragon Ascension Academy's back mountain. The three figures suddenly met in the air, and then separated after a fierce collision. In the entire valley, the grass and trees had already been chopped into pieces by the sword chi. There were even several large pits on the ground. Zhao Xiong landed on the ground and retreated a few steps in a sorry state. The blood in his body was tumbling violently. His lower abdomen and scalp, which had yet to fully recover, felt a tearing pain. He glared fiercely at the two people in front of him, his eyes full of surprise. Zhao Xiong had to wonder if he was facing a 20-year-old girl and a 5-year-old child. Were they really two golden core stage cultivators? He had already taken out his soul-stealing sword. Why couldn't he kill the two of them? 15 minutes had already passed, and Kong Yuanzhou would soon receive the news and rush over. If he still couldn't kill them, then what awaited him would be. Thinking of the Marquis's cruel methods, Zhao Xiong shuddered, his eyes revealing a strong killing intent. On the other side, Mu Yan and Xiao Bao, who were feared by Zhao Xiong, were currently in an incomparably sorry state. Xiao Bao's face was pale, and the immortal energy in his body was almost depleted. He could barely hold the evil-warding sword in his hand. Mu Yan had been protecting Xiao Bao during the battle, so her injuries were naturally more serious than hers. His snow-white clothes were stained with bloodstains. Xiao Bao, return to the space, Mu Yan said in a deep voice. An unwilling expression appeared on Little Treasure's face. He wanted to shout for Xiao Bao to stay by his mother's side to protect her. But when he saw the bloodstains on Mu Yan's body, he swallowed the words that came out of his mouth. Her small hands gripped the hilt of the Bixia sword tightly, and tears almost rolled out of her icy blue eyes. But in the end, he still swallowed his words. Xiao Bao nods affectionately, and steps towards Mu Yan. Mu Yan looks down at Xiao Bao, who looks like he's about to cry. She reaches out and gently rubs the top of his head. Xiao Bao, you did very well. Xiao Bao really did a good job. If it weren't for Xiao Bao and the evil warding sword, Zhao Xiong wouldn't have consumed so much spiritual energy. Furthermore, he wouldn't have been forced by Xiao Bao to return to help her several times when he was about to severely injure her. Mu Yan knows that as time goes on, Zhao Xiong might have to risk his life. She was going to fight with her life on the line. On the other hand, the only thing that could allow her to fight with her life on the line without any worries was to ensure little Bao's safety. Mother. Xiao Bao tugged at her finger. Even if he did his best to suppress it, tears still rolled down from his eyes. Why didn't father come to help us? Little fool. Mu Yan gently wipes away his tears. Daddy also has very important things to do. There are many, many people that need to be protected. We can miss Daddy, but we can't be a burden to Daddy, understand? Loving someone isn't about relying on him or giving in to him. Instead, it's about working hard to make yourself and the other person better. You are father and mother's favorite and proudest son. Xiao Bao listens in a daze, but when he hears Mu Yan's last sentence, he nods heavily. But when he thought of the bad people his mother had to face, he couldn't stop his tears from rolling down his cheeks. Mother, don't get hurt. You can't leave me. Mayan hooks up the corners of her lips, revealing a disdainful smile. Of course, mother is also Xiaobao's proudest mother. How could she be defeated? How could she leave her dearest baby and leave him all alone? Chapter 2139. Mayan's consciousness moves, and Xiao Bao and the Bixia sword disappear. The seven absolute sword in her hand flashes and turns back into the Tian Mo Qin. When Zhao Xiong saw Xiao Bao disappear, he was shocked at first, and then he revealed a sinister smile. So you still have a portable space on you. Do you think I can't do anything to that little bastard if you put him in the portable space? As long as I kill you, that little bastard will have nowhere to run. His slender fingers lightly pluck the Tian Mo Qin, and the spiritual power between heaven and earth seems to shake. That will depend on whether you have the ability to kill me. Zhao Xiong laughed heartily. You, that little bastard, and the Bixia sword were no match for me even if you joined hands. Now you're alone, aren't you at my mercy? Yi Liangqin, I advise you to surrender yourself if you know what's good for you. That way, you will still be able to live. Otherwise. Before he could finish his words, the Tian Mo Qin explodes with the sound of a powerful army. Countless blades flew towards Xiao Xiong at lightning speed. Sound blade, 10,000 swords attack. Zhao Xiong looked at this rain of swords that filled the sky, but he snickered and did not take it seriously at all. With a light wave of the sword in his hand, he was about to disperse the sword rain. The melodious sound of the zither rang in his ears. Zhao Xiong did not take it to heart at all. Unexpectedly, the hand that was wielding the sword suddenly stopped. He was unable to move. What was going on? Prison drawing ground, activated. There was a trace of surprise in Zhao Xiong's eyes. The spiritual power in his body surged, and he easily broke free from the shackles of drawing ground imprisonment. Disdain welled up in his heart, and he completely disregarded the tens of thousands of swords that attacked him from the sky. With a light wave, the hundreds of swords instantly disappeared as if they were vaporized. However, in the next moment, an invisible sword chi shot out from the place where the sword blade had disappeared. Zhao Xiong was caught off guard and had no time to dodge. He could only gather his spiritual energy and push. Bang! His one zhang strike landed on solid ground, breaking two of his opponent's ribs. But at the same time, from his lower abdomen, the wound that had just healed with medicine not long ago, came a heart-wrenching pain again. Zhao Xiong screamed and sent him flying with another palm strike. However, as soon as the opponent was sent flying, he immediately rushed back. At the same time, the melodious sound of the zither kept ringing in his ears. The sound of the zither was very melodious, but it made Zhao Xiong restless. And Mayan's fighting style makes Zhao Xiong tremble with fear. In that sneak attack just now, Mayan used the method of injuring the enemy by 1,000, and injuring herself by 800. Now, every single move was risking his life. It was true that Zhao Xiong injured her every time they fought, but the injuries on his body were also increasing. Especially the wound on his lower abdomen, the tear was even bigger. Almost almost touched his dantian. Lunatic. This woman was a lunatic. Which golden core stage cultivator wouldn't use dodging and delaying tactics against a leaving aperture stage cultivator? Instead, he would fight with his life on the line. Was she really not afraid of death? Could it be that in order to protect that little bastard, in order to make Kong Yuanzhou rush over to kill him, she really didn't want her life anymore? Zhao Xiong's heart gave birth to an indescribable fear and withdrawal. Facing a golden core cultivator, he actually showed signs of retreating. His slight hesitation is immediately caught by Mu Yan. Boom! The starry domain, accompanied by the sudden high-pitched sound of the zither, instantly covers the entire valley. The 7 absolute swords are wrapped in a stormy sea of murderous intent, madly rushing towards Zhao Xiong. Puchi! This is the sound of a sword piercing flesh. Chapter 2140. It's followed by Zhao Xiong's roar full of pain, anger, and unwillingness. No, my dantian. Again and again, she fights for her life, attacks without regard for her own injuries, and tears the wound precisely again and again. Finally, Mu Yan's Qijue's sword pierces Zhao Xiong's dantian. Zhao Xiong's eyes bulge. Looking at the girl with a lazy and cold smile in front of him, he only feels that the blood in his whole body is ice cold. Is this the Lord of 6 Stars, the successor of the King of Medicine, Yi Liangqin? So terrible. Her toughness, her innate talent, her swordsmanship, her innate talent, they were all too terrifying. Is he, Zhao Xiong, going to die in the hands of such a little girl, a Jindan stage cultivator? The unwillingness in Zhao Xiong's eyes distorts into madness. No, I won't die in the hands of a Jindan stage cultivator. Even if I die, I must bury you with me. Ha 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 ha, Yi Liangqin, go to hell with me. As soon as the voice falls, Zhao Xiong suddenly picks up the soul-robbing sword and pierces his dantian, which has been injured by Mu Yan. The next moment, a strong suction comes from the soul-robbing sword. The remaining spiritual power in Zhao Xiong's dantian rushes towards the soul-robbing sword. Even Mu Yan feels that her spiritual power is restless, as if it wants to rush out along with the Qijue's sword that pierces Zhao Xiong's abdomen. Mu Yan's heart shudders. She resolutely withstands the pain in her body and quickly retreats. When she stands still and looks at Zhao Xiong, she is immediately shocked. She sees that Zhao Xiong's body, which was a little round and fat just a moment ago, is actually only skin and bones in a flash. From his open mouth, there is a painful gasp. 2 bloodshot eyes look like they were about to pop out of their sockets. But after a few breaths, a large amount of black gas suddenly rushes out of the soul-robbing sword and wraps Zhao Xiong, who is like a mummy. The black gas slowly dissipates, leaving a face that is uglier than a malicious ghost, and crimson eyes without reason, only the desire to kill. He, Yi Liangqin, your time of death has come. Mu Yan's pupils shrink, and she slowly says, demonic cultivator. Nyangqin, you promised Xiaobao that you wouldn't die. Whoa. Nyangqin, you're lying. Jun Mayan, scoundrel, let me out. Jun Mayan, I'm begging you, you'll die if you go on like this. Mother, Xiaobao is scared. Don't abandon Xiaobao. Mu Yan shakes her head, forcing her thoughts to focus. The hand holding the 7 absolute sword was stained with blood. It was cold as if it no longer belonged to him. Zhao Xiong, who had already turned into a demon, soared into the sky, playing with her like a cat playing with a mouse, torturing her while letting out ear-piercing laughter from time to time. However, apart from being carefree, this laughter was also filled with a deep-rooted resentment. Yi Liangqin, it's all because of you that I have to expose my identity as a fallen evil, and I can never turn back. Kong Yuanzhou will be here soon. From now on, I will be like a street rat with no place to hide. All of this is because of you, you bitch. I'm going to torture you to death bit by bit. Then, I'm going to break every bone in your son's body. I'm going to swallow his flesh. Ha ha ha, just wait for the little bastard to meet you in hell. Swallow his flesh and blood one mouthful at a time. Zhao Xiong's voice is like a hammer, hitting Mu Yan's mind fiercely. Chapter 2141. Xiao Bao's cries echoed in his ears. His eyes, which had already lost focus, gradually gathered a light that was even more dazzling than the scorching sun. In the Tian Mo Qin space, the dragon abyss sword that Luo Yunxiao gave her makes a buzzing sound. In the sky, countless spiritual powers seem to have been summoned by something, surging towards Mayan. A multicolored light flashes from Mayan's body. Vaguely, a huge bright moon appeared behind her. Zhao Xiong was bewildered. What was going on? What was Yap doing? Soon, Zhao Xiong knew what the person opposite him was doing. She was advancing. That's right, the girl who was originally at the first level of the Golden Core Realm was now climbing towards the second level of the Golden Core Realm. After figuring out what had happened, Zhao Xiong immediately sneered. Did he think that by advancing to the second stage of Jindan, he would be able to escape from his evil clutches? What a joke! However, what happened next made Zhao Xiong speechless. After reaching the second stage of Golden Core, the advancement did not stop. Third stage core formation, fourth stage, fifth stage, ninth stage, peak stage. In the blink of an eye, this girl, who was less than 20 years old, actually advanced from the early stage of Gold Core to the peak of Gold Core. How was this possible? With the advancement of her realm, Mayan's originally dried up dantian and her limbs and bones are once again filled with vigorous spiritual power. His stiff and cold body seemed to have been injected with vitality. Even the injuries on his body were no longer important at this moment. Zhao Xiong came back to his senses after a long while. He gritted his teeth and said, "Peak of Jindan. Yi Liangchen, do you really think that you can be my opponent just because you have reached the peak of the Gold Core Realm? In my eyes, the peak of the Gold Core Realm is the same as the beginner level of the Gold Core Realm. They are just ants that I can trample to death at any time." Under the moonlight, the young girl raised her pale lips. The smile on her blood-stained face was faint, but it was as if she was a king overlooking all living things. Whether it's the same or not, we'll know once we try. Xiuxian Continent. Di Mingju fiercely wrinkles his brows, looking at Xing Lang with a gaze that seems like he wants to skin him alive. Star Wolf's entire body trembled, but he still stubbornly refused to budge. He wanted to stay by Jun Shang's side. Even if he died, he wanted to be Jun Shang's most loyal dead dog. In fact, Xing Lang didn't stay by Mu Yan's side all this time. Instead, he hid in his mustard seed space to cultivate. Xing Lang was really afraid of Mayan and Xiaobao's torment. He didn't want to resist Xiaobao, so he only left a small spell beside Mayan and Xiaobao. If they encountered danger that they couldn't solve, he could teleport over. However, while communicating with Han Yi through the Qinquan mirror, the Star Wolf accidentally learns that Di Mingju has unexpectedly gone alone to the haunted Lingxi Valley. Star Wolf was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. How could their polar domain supreme and most honorable monarch, the only monarch he had ever revered and followed in his life, take such a risk? The Star Wolf curses loudly, "Han Yi, Ying Mei, you two bastards, trash, traitors, you actually didn't follow Jun up." Finished speaking, he didn't wait for the two of them to react. Disregarding the possible impact on his divine soul, he returned to the polar domain through the universe mirror. That was why the three of them came together. In the back mountain of Spirit Rhino Valley, the irritated howls of the poltergeist ghosts could be heard. Deming-ju can only withdraw his thoughts of punishing the star wolf. The poltergeist ghost that he had just killed was about to revive. Another wave of poltergeist ghosts is also about to surge out from the barrier. The change in energy fluctuations made these poltergeist ghosts riot. Chapter 2142. Chiming's eyes revealed anxiety and panic as he said with a sheepish smile, "Imperial Lord, if we let this batch of poltergeist ghosts revive, another wave will surge out of the barrier. It will be even harder to exterminate all these poltergeist ghosts. Why don't we take advantage of the fact that the number of poltergeist ghosts has decreased and charge in together? We can't really let the Spirit Rhinoceros Valley and the surrounding towns be completely destroyed, right?" Han Yi sneers, "Charge in together. Valley Master are you planning to take the lead and charge at the forefront?" Chiming's expression stiffened, fear causing the muscles on his face to tremble. He stuttered, "This subordinate's cultivation is low. How could I have killed so many poltergeist ghosts? Our Spirit Rhino Valley has already decided to pledge allegiance to the polar domain, then naturally we will rely on Monarch." Han Yi looks at him mockingly, his gaze sweeping over everyone. Does the Spirit Rhinoceros Valley really want to return to the polar domain? This is the wish of our loyalty. As long as we can return to the polar domain, it doesn't matter even if we have to work like cattle and horses. If Spirit Rhino Valley cannot return to the polar domain, I am willing to withdraw from Spirit Rhino Valley. Resolute voices rose and fell from the surroundings. Some of them even shouted out loud, "I'm willing to serve the Emperor as my master for the rest of my life. If I betray you, I will be consigned to eternal damnation." In fact, the Spirit Rhinoceros Valley originally belonged to the polar domain. In their hearts, there was only Deming-ju, this king. The people of the Shushan continent had a long lifespan, so how could they forget something that happened more than 10 years ago? Now that they are in danger, Deming-ju has come to their rescue. This makes them even more excited, unable to control themselves. Han Yi snorts coldly in his heart, inwardly saying, "At least you guys have a bit of conscience." However, on the surface, he said coldly, "The Spirit Rhinoceros Valley can return to the polar domain, but others can return to the polar domain, but Chiming definitely cannot." Chiming was dumbfounded. What do you mean? Am I the Valley Lord of the Spirit Rhinos Valley? Chiming, do you take us for fools? When Xing Lang faces Deming-ju, he's trembling with fear and can't even speak properly. But when it comes to other people, his fighting power immediately goes off the charts. Back then, in order to curry favor with your new master, how many bad things did you say about Di-jun behind his back? Now that your new master has abandoned you, you want to return to the polar domain. Keep on dreaming. Either the Spirit Rhinos Valley changes its valley master, or the entire Spirit Rhinos Valley scram from our polar domain. After the poltergeist ghosts are expelled, we will take back all of this territory. Chiming was so angry that his entire body was trembling. You must be joking. Spirit Rhino Valley is my family's." Before he could finish his words, the people from the Spirit Rhino Valley had already shouted without hesitation. "Change the Valley Master. Change the Valley Lord." The calamity of the poltergeist ghost this time was caused by this Chiming. He is not fit to be our Spirit Rhino Valley's Valley Master. Change Valley Master and return to the polar domain. Chiming was about to go crazy. Because in the entire Spirit Rhino Valley, there was not a single person who supported him. In fact, after that, everyone began to make arrangements on how to exterminate the poltergeist ghosts and how to seal the spirit formation. No one bothered with him anymore. With the addition of Ing Mei and the other two, as well as the unity of the people from Spirit Rhinoceros Valley, coupled with Deming-ju's incomparably tyrannical and unstoppable fighting strength, The hundreds of thousands of poltergeist ghosts in the back mountain were actually almost completely wiped out in a short period of time. Di Mingju stands in front of the barrier, the divine power in his body surging. Little by little, his divine sense wrapped around the broken enchantment barrier. The weakening of the barrier every few years was impossible to repair. However, the barrier of the Spirit Rhino Valley was clearly damaged by someone. Chapter 2143. Therefore, it was possible to repair the barrier by manipulating the divine power with a powerful divine will. However, this kind of restoration was also very taxing on the mind, and it could not be disturbed in any way. In a corner of the Spirit Rhino Valley, Qiming carefully observed his surroundings. Seeing that there was no one around, he anxiously took out a small black porcelain bottle. When Qiming opened the porcelain bottle, there was a trace of hesitation on his face. Back then, he had only used a tiny drop of it to create a huge hole in the barrier. Spirit Rhino Valley was almost completely wiped out, becoming food for the poltergeist ghosts. Now, there were 10 times more in this porcelain bottle than before. If he really opened it, Qiming looked conflicted. But it was soon replaced by resentment and unwillingness. Polar Domain. Di Mingju, since you won't give me a way out, then don't think that you'll have a good day either. Ha ha ha. Since the Spirit Rhino Valley no longer belongs to me, then all of you can go and die. Thinking of this, Qiming no longer hesitated and opened the small porcelain bottle. Almost as soon as the lid was opened, a ball of red liquid rushed toward the barrier like a living creature. Qiming's eyes shone. Eat, eat, eat. This is the best fodder for you beasts. After eating this fodder, you will become even more powerful. I want to let those people from the polar domain know the consequences of offending me, Qiming. It wasn't that he didn't know that the person who gave him the feed had ill intentions and was just using him as cannon fodder to die. Before this, he had been very cautious when using it. But now, his hatred towards the polar domain and Spirit Rhino Valley surpassed everything. However, in the next moment, Qiming saw the barrier in front of him tremble violently. One ghost face after another protruded from the barrier, only to be pulled back by a powerful force. Qiming's eyes were filled with terror as he turned around to run. However, he had only flown a few meters away when he heard countless roars. "Aw!" The shrill scream came to an abrupt end. In the blink of an eye, all that was left was a tattered skeleton covered in minced meat lying on the ground. Countless poltergeist ghosts swarmed in the direction of the aura of the living. What's going on? Why are there suddenly so many vampires? Ah! Help me, help me! Ah! Report to the Emperor. Report to the Emperor. The people from the Spirit Rhino Valley who had originally been clearing the poltergeist ghosts in the outskirts had never expected that so many poltergeist ghosts would suddenly surge out from the back mountain that had already been mostly cleared. Moreover, the strength of these venomous ghosts was completely beyond their imagination. After being bitten by the poltergeist ghosts, someone took the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill, only to discover that it was completely useless. This time, everyone panicked. Even Han Ye's and Xing Lang's complexions change. The trio galloped to Di Mingju's side, anxiously saying, "Di Jun, the situation has changed greatly. A lot of poltergeists suddenly appeared. Let's evacuate first and then think of a way, okay?" No one knows better than Di Mingju, who is in the middle of mending the enchantment. Hearing his subordinates urging him to leave, as well as the people from the Spirit Rhinoceros Valley rushing over in a daze. From start to finish, Di Mingju's expression is cold and indifferent. What are you panicking about? Pejun, go stabilize the formation. Pejun, who has never disobeyed Di Mingju's orders, shows a hesitant expression for the first time. He knew that Jun Shang wanted him to stabilize the formation in the valley. to prevent any of the vampires from escaping. Chapter 2144. But Jun Shang is currently stabilizing the barrier and has no fighting power. How can he leave Di Jun's side? But this thought is only for a moment, and in the end, obedience prevails. Yes, Jun Shang. Almost as soon as defeating armies rushes out, the poltergeist ghosts rush in from all directions. Han Yi and the others see that Di Mingju refuses to leave, so they can only settle their minds and form an array to kill the poltergeist ghosts. The array is centered around Han Yi, Ying Mei, and Xing Lang, and supported by the people of Spirit Rhinoceros Valley, exerting a formidable power. The poltergeist ghosts are killed wave after wave. But the poltergeist ghosts can be reborn, and there's no way to kill them all. Slowly, some people's immortal force is exhausted, and they're on the verge of collapse, unable to hold on. But the poltergeist ghosts are increasing in number. Just as everyone is in despair, there's a sudden blur, and a figure appears in front of them. A weapon that looks like a knife but isn't a knife, like a sword but isn't a sword, is lightly waved in the air. Roar! The poltergeist ghosts roar in horror, and a large number of them disappear at once. Everyone is dumbfounded. They look at Di Mingju who's repairing the barrier, and then at the godlike Di Jun floating in the air. Each and every one of them is dumbfounded. Even Han Yi and the others reveal expressions of shock and worship. So strong. Too strong. Many immortals in the Shushan continent can split their primordial spirit avatars. But the primordial spirit avatars usually only have 1/10 of the main body's strength. Not to mention, repairing the barrier and the primordial spirit avatars consume the immortal body. And Di Mingju. He did it at the same time. Moreover, even his avatar is so powerful that it can crush all of them. With Di Mingju's help, everyone's spirits are greatly boosted. The barrier is gradually repaired, and the number of poltergeist ghosts is also slowly decreasing because they can't keep up with the rebirth. Everyone's eyes reveal the excitement of seeing the dawn. However, at this time Di Mingju's palm emits a scorching heat that could burn his soul. At the same time, something bursts in the depths of Xing Lang's sea of consciousness, sending out a tremor like an alarm. Di Mingju's handsome face that wouldn't change even if empty Tai collapsed in front of him, revealing a horrified expression. Star Wolf's face instantly turned ghastly pale, and his body was on the verge of collapse. He tried his best to support himself, yet he was unable to maintain the surging fear and regret in his heart. Both Di Mingju and Xing Lang know what that means. Jun Mayan is in danger. The future mistress of the polar domain and the future successor of the polar domain had encountered a life and death crisis. Roar! The poltergeist ghost that had been passively beaten finally found an opportunity. 3 of them pounced towards the Star Wolf. Han Yi and Ying Mei promptly blocked 2 of them, but there's still one that rushes straight to the Star Wolf's body and ruthlessly bites down on his neck, tearing off a piece of flesh. However, Han Yi and Ying Mei have no time to attend to the Star Wolf at this time. Because of this unforeseen event, several poltergeist ghosts break free from the shackles of the array, and rush towards Di Mingju's main body, who is standing next to the enchantment. Jun Shang. The 3 of them let out mournful howls, throwing caution to the wind as they throw themselves in front of Di Mingju. At this moment, they couldn't care less about how terrifying the poltergeist ghost was, what would happen to them if they were bitten by the poltergeist ghost, or how to activate their immortal power to protect themselves. The only thought in his mind was to protect the God Monarch. Even if he had to die, he had to protect the God Monarch. However, the expected pain of his flesh being torn apart did not come. The 3 of them raised their heads in a daze, only to see a tall figure standing in front of them, protecting them firmly behind him. Chapter 2145. He thought back to all these years. This person was clearly a high and mighty emperor, but he always protected them, pampered them, and never let them suffer the slightest harm or grievance. Jun Shang. The always scolding Mei let out a cry. Jun Shang, you're injured. They see that Di Mingju's right hand is holding a sword to protect them, while his left hand is maintaining the restoration enchantment, unable to budge. One of the poltergeist ghosts tore off a piece of his flesh. Bastards, you dare to hurt the Emperor, I'll kill you. I'll kill you all. Star Wolf was simply insane. He did not care that using immortal energy might cause the poison to spread. He crazily swung his blade at the poltergeist ghost. However, just by looking at his face, one could see that his face was covered in tears. Endless regret gnawed at his heart like a poisonous snake. Why did he leave Miss June? Why did he leave Little Master? If he hadn't left, Jun Shang wouldn't have been distracted at all, and he wouldn't have been bitten by a venomous ghost to protect them. He, Star Wolf, was a sinner. An unforgivable sinner. This batch of starved ghosts seemed to be different from the previous ones. The poison in their teeth could not be cured with the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill. Moreover, it seems to have gained a bit of spiritual wisdom. After injuring Di Mingju, it immediately lets out shouts of joy. The vampires who died last time had been resurrected. More and more malevolent ghost faces, the rotting stench of death, surrounded the despairing Spirit Rhino Valley people. Di Mingju slowly withdraws his divine sense from the barrier. He had originally wanted to repair it completely to prevent any future problems, but now it seemed that it was still too difficult. He gently squeezed his burning left hand that was hanging by his side. For a moment, he felt as if something was tugging at his heart. It made him want to rush to the cultivation continent to protect his wife and child. Divine power was already surging in his body. But at this moment, the young girl's clear and melodious voice once again resounded in his mind. I'm not a daughter flower that attaches itself to you. Even if I die with you, it's impossible for you to stay by my side and protect me at all times. Di Mingju, trust me a little more. I'm the wife you've chosen, the woman who's going to stand by His Majesty's side. Di Mingju suddenly closes his eyes, then slowly opens them again. The burning passion and anxiety in his heart slowly cooled down, turning into a deep-rooted gentleness and deep affection. From the moment the two had pledged their love until now, Mayan had been working hard to verify the words she had said. His wife was so outstanding and powerful, how could he fall behind her? He is the man who wants to stand by June Mayan's side. Wave after wave of ghouls surged forward, bringing with them a bloodthirsty and tyrannical desire to kill and devour. The people of Spirit Rhinoceros Valley, including Ying Mei and Han Yi, have all sunk into despair. Just at this moment, a ray of light suddenly shone from the back mountains of the Spirit Rhino Valley. Everyone was taken aback and looked up in unison. The swarming and roaring poltergeist ghosts also seemed to be shocked by something, and all of their movements suddenly froze. In the next moment, the entire valley, the barrier, and even the celestial chi in the entire cultivation continent began to fluctuate violently as if they were swept up by a gust of wind. In the back mountain of the Spirit Rhino Valley, everyone's eyes were wide open as they stared at the figure in the sky, their faces filled with shock, unable to make a single sound. In the sky, a blood-red sun slowly rose into the sky. Wherever the multicolored light went, it was as if the king had arrived. All things submit, all living beings bow their heads. Under the illumination of the rising sun, the poltergeist ghosts that were still fiendish just a moment ago seemed like they were about to be melted, letting out mournful howls. Chapter 2146. Nether Realm. Immortal Emperor Level. This is the divine sense and pressure of an immortal emperor. Nether Region Master In Wuji let out a roar of disbelief. How is this possible? This can't be Di Mingju. It can't be Di Mingju. At the bottom of the demon realm's hidden abyss. Glorious sun swallows the heavens, leave fire 9 luminaries. Demon Lord, I didn't expect that the cultivation of this polar domain's sovereign lord has actually reached such a powerful level. The voice of the demon race's elder even trembled slightly because of jealousy and shock. She couldn't help but look at the man in front of her and sighed, such an outstanding man, it's a pity that he rejected the marriage alliance with my demon race, otherwise. He hasn't finished speaking when he sees the man in front of him slowly turn around, speaking in a voice that is neither light nor heavy. You're saying that my, Jun Shitian's daughter isn't worthy of Di Mingju? No, no. This elder of the demon race shakes his head again and again in fright, his voice trembling even more than when he marveled at Di Mingju's strength. Honor demon, your daughter is naturally the most outstanding in the world. The polar domain's sovereign emperor had eyes but failed to see. He will definitely regret it in the future. Humph. The devilish elder heaved a long sigh of relief as the man harumphed coldly before disappearing, then gently shook his head. He didn't know whether the daughter of the honor demon was beautiful or ugly, or whether she was dead or alive. If he were the polar domain's sovereign emperor, he wouldn't be willing either. Didn't they see that Inwuji of the Nether Realm couldn't bear to part with his precious son and pushed out a shield to be the future husband of their demon race princess? Cultivation Continent, Dragon Soaring Academy. When he heard Luo Yu's message, he looked at the dying Chu Tianyu and Murong Shui. Zhou Daoi was so frightened that he almost fell to the ground. Even Sun Yuanzhou was scared out of his wits. What did you say? Miss June is fighting against a leaving body cultivator all by herself. Heavens! She was the Emperor's fiancée, the future mistress of the polar domain. If anything were to happen to Long Ting, Kong Yuanzhou felt his vision darken, and he wished he could pass out immediately. But at this moment, he had no time to be shocked. Before Luo Yu could even reply, Xiaoqin had already turned into a meteor, flying in the direction of the back mountains of the Soaring Dragon sect. Along the way, Kong Yuanzhou was burning with anxiety. He kept imagining what kind of scene he would see in the back of the mountain. Would mine be abused by an astral projection cultivator, or even killed? If she really died, how furious would the emperor be? Even if he, Kong Yuanzhou, died to atone for his sins, he still wouldn't be able to pay for it. I hope Miss June can buy a little more time. That's right. Miss June was smart, and the only lord of 6 stars. She would definitely be able to buy him enough time to get there. If she didn't have such confidence, she probably wouldn't have stayed behind alone. Kong Yuanzhou had made all sorts of preparations in his heart. He felt that no matter what kind of situation he encountered, he would be able to deal with it calmly. However, when he arrived at his destination and saw the scene in front of him, he felt that the construction he had just done was all for naught. Kong Yuanzhou was dumbfounded as he stared at the scene in front of him. Under the moonlight, the girl whose white clothes had been dyed bright red slowly raised her head. Her clear and bright peach blossom eyes met his eyes. Sun Yuanzhou shuddered. Then, his gaze shifted stiffly downwards, and finally landed on her left hand. There was a head in his hand. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.